And just like that, we are back to round out this week in Smite with our second and final set here in the SPL. SSG up against the Renegades. My name is Dolson. Mifflin here with me to talk about this one. But before we kind of touch on this one, Mifflin, let's look back at what we saw already this week. And more specifically, I think, what we already saw today. Sanguine 2-0 over Obey. And that is not how the community at large saw it.
Yeah, Vamos Sanguine absolutely going by and far leagues ahead of what we were expecting. I mean, the community was expecting the Obey dub, but I think Aggro covered it very well, that initial desk. Sanguine is a team that we can expect great things from. These guys have been playing together for a long time at this high level, and I think Obey might be looking to be a little bit on the weaker side this season.
And I'm excited to kind of see where Sanguine are able to grow into as the season goes on. But this matchup right here, the last unresolved match here in the SPL this week. Every other team has played. Happer up top, Happer on the bottom. SSG up against the Renegades, Mifflin. This one I think could be close. There's some history here between these guys, some new players coming in to the Renegades, but you don't seem to agree that it might be all that close.
SSG, for my money, is the greatest contender we have for this 2020 World season. I mean, these guys are so good. Nika, Cherryo, Dardez, BaRRaCCuDDa. I mean, I can say their names, and they should carry weight. These guys are all nuts. But on the side of Renegades, we have that unknown in the 408.
Yeah, what do you make of that? I mean, that has been such a conversation piece coming into the SPL. Awesome Jake 408, the guardian for the Renegades. What are your expectations for him here?
I expect to see some very unique play from Jake. He's been around the scene for so absolutely long. He hasn't quite seen a break into competitive until just now. I mean, Jake's been playing this game for 6 years easily, and he is known for one thing in ranked, and it's one thing only, and it's the run it down. My man is going to drop an 0-16 slash line and then somehow kill your Titan. It doesn't make any sense. We might see it again here in the SPL.
Well, the rest of that Renegades roster, SoloOrTroll, Lasbra, Venenu, BaRRaCCuDDa, obviously well-known names. Do you think that overwhelming aggressive playstyle from someone like Awesome Jake 408 seems like it might mesh here with the other guys on Renegades?
Well, I mean, looking at Renegades, BaRRa has been one of the more subdued hunters that we've seen, especially in the recent years. He doesn't bring this playstyle that would mesh with 408. I think if we were to make the dream matchup, I would put 408 with Steven Zappist. That's the type of aggression I would expect to see. BaRRaCCuDDa definitely has a more disciplined playstyle. He plays for the late game and he plays around objectives, whereas Jake is a killer, you know what I mean?
I agree. But there's still
SOT,
lots of questions.
Yeah, there's lots of questions for sure.
And I think that this will be a matchup where a lot of questions get answered. We've seen throughout the other 6 teams, lots of questions swirling around there. But plenty of that will be discovered here in this matchup. So let's look at picks and bans, because already, Mifflin, I see a lot of high-tier picks being locked in. SSG, Sobek, Thor, Merlin round out their top 3. I'm not sad at all by getting those guys locked in, but we've already seen today what a Camazotz can do when it kind of gets off the leash a little bit, so Renegades absolutely not a draft to scoff at.
It isn't. Renegades did, however, also draft that Hunbots, which is telling me that that Kama is going to go into the short lane. That might be a little bit of a misplay to show your hand like that so early, because Camazotz is that fantastic flex pick, and I would think most people would expect to see it in the jungle. Showing that Hunbots right now means that they can shift their focus towards banning out Guardians as well as mid laners, whereas SSG already has a Guardian and a mid selected, so it's only going to hurt Renegades.
And I like them. I like the Renegades, at least somewhat going for Huyi early on here, because Hunter, so back and forth today from what we've seen. Lots of Jing on her here and there. A Kernanos out of nowhere locked in our previous set today, so or in the SCC today. So I'm excited to kind of see where that Hunter meta continues to form. But a Kuzenbo locked in here for SSG. What do you make of that one, Miff?
Kuzenbo is a great unknown. I would not have expected to see this from SSG. I thought maybe we'd see the wacky picks come out of the Renegades, but Kuzenbo is going to be able to reflect a ton of damage here. He's going to be able to keep Camazotz off of his back line, as well as any sort of AoE damage that is dropped by Renegades will be reflected back as well. But I'm interested to see where it goes. Sobek could go solo, Kuzenbo could go support. It could go either way.
Talk about continued Hunter variety, as well as Aphrodite. Again, rumblings about Afro and where she might stand. Quick thoughts on either side. AMC, Aphrodite locked in.
Afro is especially strong right now, where I expect to see it in that middle lane. She's got so much damage. She got a slight buff on that last patch, but this AMC, SSG is throwing me for a loop with this comp. I mean, these are all picks that we just don't see too often.
This is going to be a fun one, Mifflin, so without further ado, we'll kick this one off. And Renegades versus SSG, Mifflin, and you look at these two drafts, I think Game 1 is going to be a lot of fun to look into. Do you like one draft over the other overwhelmingly? I know we had some interesting picks there towards the sides, but between these two drafts, which one maybe excites you the most?
Well, if we're going to talk about pure excitement, it's got to be SSG with these wacky picks in the AMC and the Kuzenbo. But I have to give it to Renegades for pure draft, just in terms of how well they're going to be able to play. I mean, Aphrodite is going to be able to run this into the late game. That sustain is going to be so high. And with that most recent patch, Aphrodite's damage output is nothing to be sneezed at either.
I agree, and quick pause here before we jump into this game. I think I have big questions as well about this Muzen Cobb, because I think as a god, even throughout all the weeks of the SCC, I couldn't tell you how many times we've seen him get played on the low end. I'm not sure I've seen him get played yet. What are realistic expectations for how AMC performs here, especially against a Hu Yi who has been towards the top of that hunter category for a long time?
If AMC gets left alone in that lane, he's an absolute monster. The damage output, as well as the cripple to make sure Hu Yi can't jump away, all incredibly potent. However, that comes with the caveat being that AMC has very low mobility, no true escape abilities for himself. Yes, he could drop a slow at his feet or maybe cripple a jungler once they come in, but a quick beads is going to sit for an easy gank. AMC should be easy food for the jungler from SSG.
I agree, and you look at an AMC, the god that can get rolling, especially if left alone, as you point out. You had quick thoughts, and we were kind of discussing the Renegades roster when we were going into picks and bans. What do you think about SOT kind of in that dynamic? You had a thought that you were maybe just about to jump into there.
SOT is one of the most competitively aggressive guys I've ever met. I've scrimmed against this man a lot. SOT, his name is true. He is a troll. If he would fall behind in one of these scrims, he would walk around the map just clapping with the emotes or dancing in the middle of the lane. I mean, this guy plays aggressive, but sometimes he can be lacking in the discipline department.
Well, Mifflin, let's just see how aggressive they play here. Game number 1, let's kick it off.
Thanks, Dulcin Miff. Now we're back over here to Finch and Agros. We get ready for our final set of the day, Renegades and Space Station, with the rosters orgs maybe switched around a bit from what you might be used to for last year. But remember, Space Station with the iRaffer squad, Renegades, now rocking Bear and the boys. And like they were talking about a bit, it's a little bit different in this drafts, what we're seeing from the Space Station squad, right? There's a Muzen Cobb pick coming through, the Kuzenbo as well. These aren't gods that we see a whole lot of, Aggro.
No, it isn't, and it looks like it's actually going to be Dardez on the AMC in the mid lane and Vote taking that Merlin into the long lane. And I think it was Hindu Man yesterday asking me if we'd still see a whole lot of mages in duo, and it always feels like it's a possibility, but you never want to, because you really can't rule it out. But it must be, I was thinking that this AMC was going to be there to pressure out and put pressure onto Hu Yi, because that's a fairly good matchup if you can get ahead, but a bad one if you can get behind. I kind of like this a little bit more. Dardez can build Brawler's Beat Stick very, very easily on this AMC in the mid lane, consistently apply that anti-heal to Venenu on this Aphrodite mid. I'm more surprised to see Nika on the Sobek and iRaffer on the Kuzenbo. Usually see the Kuzenbo in the solo lane when the few times we do see it, probably feeling like it might get bullied out a little bit too much. So iRaffer not going to be able to solo the enemy ADC quite as easily as we sometimes see Kuzenbo do, but still be that disruptive force in these team fights.
I'm a bit surprised we're seeing this much of the Guardian solo really at all. It felt like that strategy kind of went by the wayside with some of that Guardian's blessing change, but you can tell Nika's got the Warrior's Blessing. He's definitely not going to be trying to use it over there. He is going to have to try and box out SoloOrTroll a bit on this Camazotz, and just about every god can struggle with that, even Sobek. So I'm a bit surprised by all of this Space Station draft, but these guys showed us last year, Aggro, they can execute at such a high level. They have so much trust in one another and coordination, in that iRaffer will be able to execute for the team and everyone else will be there to follow up. So whatever Space Station want to take into battle, I'm 100% confident.
Agreed, and I think that the iRaffer going with the Kuzenbo is an interesting idea because it's just one of those picks that causes a lot of disruption, but sometimes you feel like, okay, I ulted and then they just kind of walked away from me. I'm not able to really get involved as much as I would like, and that's why it usually works to get it more farm in the solo lane. But up against this Aphrodite, iRaffer is going to force out that Undying Love very, very quickly in a lot of these team fights. Just picking up one person with that sumo slam or starting that watery grave channel is going to force Venenu's hand fairly quickly. And I like this idea. It's a less committal Guardian that can still force defensive usage of that Aphrodite ult. I don't mind it at all.
Venenu is going to be under a good amount of pressure this game, but Vin's kind of a good guy for that, man. I feel like when we talk about some players who are role players, it can have this negative connotation. But what I mean by that is Venenu's not, he's not going to be trying to like force things to be played through him. He's one of those guys that's very willing to do what his team needs for them to succeed. And I feel like Aphrodite's one of those gods that can fit Venenu's playstyle really well. So even though I do think you're right, there's going to be some extra pressure on him and extra focus to make sure he's executing well. I really think Venenu can, on this Aphrodite pick, do it quite well too. So we'll see how it ends up shaping up for him, but I don't know. I kind of predict we'll see Vin in a good spot here.
I agree. My only concern is that Renegades have gone with something that you can kind of trap yourself in pretty easily, which is we have too many gods relying on sustain. Both Camazotz and Aphrodite rely so heavily on their ability to sustain in these team fights that Spacestation Gaming's so incentivizing an anti-heal already against either one of them that they're both going to end up being a little bit less effective. I prefer Aphrodite in compositions where you don't need, where no one else has any sustain at all, where you feel like, okay, I'm forced to get Divine or I'm forced to get Brawlers, but man, I wish I didn't have to in this moment. In this game, you're like, yes, I can't wait for my anti-heal to come online, because now I'm going to be so much more effective against multiple members of Renegades. Space Station's going to pick up a Cursed Ankh this game, no doubt in my mind. That's going to help them out quite a bit. It's not going to feel like sacrificing that team relic slot like it does at other times.
Well, are you worried at all that maybe they'll be a bit lacking in the magical damage? I mean, because they are going to be pretty reliant on Ven for that too, right? I mean, I think Fafnir can kind of fill that void in the dragon form a little bit, but I mean, between the Camazotz, the Unbots, and BaRRaCCuDDa on the Hou-Yi, I feel like they're kind of going to be double dipping duties for Venenu, not only keeping everyone sustained, but trying to find some relevant damage in these fights too.
It is a concern, but I'm not too worried about it because Aphrodite, with the most recent changes, basically, it's a lot like what happened with Kukulkan in my mind, where it's a buff that you think, okay, this ability, it happens to be the third ability for both of them, isn't too effective in team fights. It's only there to clear waves. Let's buff it so that it feels good to use. And I think that's the right direction for these characters. But what it really does is it adds another ability to the kit. Kukulkan, for 6 years, was fighting you with his 1 and his ult, and if you got CC'd forever, his 3 would hit you. Now you get hit by the 3 fairly often, and the same can be said for Aphrodite. It helped her clear because it added an extra tick, so she clears much more quickly. She's good at wave clear now, straight up. And it becomes so much easier to land this Lovebird in the middle of combat. Basically adding a significant damaging ability to Aphrodite's kit is a night and day difference for playing this character. I think that we're going to see a good amount of Aphrodite as we move forward in the SPL.
We've been talking a lot about Venenu and how he's going to have to be careful this game. I wonder if the same could be true of Dardez. I feel like both these teams have quite a lot of control at their disposal. Awesome Jake, Lasbra, and SoloOrTroll should be able to fairly consistently get back there and punish this Muzen Cobb, I'm thinking, here in this game. So as much as we're talking about Venenu needing to be safe, I feel like that same issue might exist for Dardez.
Definitely, especially against Aphrodite, where even though, she's thought of as this healing bot, she has what is effectively a point-and-click stun the majority of the time, right? I mean, you can just walk at someone and then send out that kiss, and it's going to land almost all the time. It's a very fast projectile. So it's difficult for a character like AMC who can get caught out at times. If Venenu is feeling comfortable enough to be far enough forward to stun him, that's going to cause problems for Dardez. And that's why I kind of like this style, though, of an AMC, because yes, it puts him in danger, but there are a lot of characters that get put in danger by something like Aphrodite Kiss. AMC, at the very least, has the potential to turn and one-shot you if you step up a little bit too far. It's not a very slow damage kit. It's burst potential for this character.
You're right. He's sort of like this character. Well, if I'm going to be at risk, let's at least have some high return, right? And a Muzen Cobb absolutely gives you that, doesn't he? And another note on the Kiss, it feels like one of those kind of abilities where it's a little, it can get kind of lost to me in team fights, right? There's not a whole lot of like pre-fire or anything like that. Like that Kiss is coming, and it stuns you relatively quickly. It can be kind of hard, I think, to play around it a lot in these fights too. So that's another one of those tools in the belt for Renegades. They're going to need to make sure is showing up for them. But things have been relatively slow throughout these first few minutes, and I don't think that's so surprising. I don't think any of these teams are going to complain if they make it to the 18-20 minute mark without a whole lot of action happening.
These are both compositions that scale very well. You've got an Aphrodite in mid. She wants as many items as she can to get her power up and to get that healing output really high. And on the other side, you've got Spacestation Gaming with double Guardians. That's a composition that's always going to do well as the game goes later and later. You don't really need to take fights early when they're not going to be tanky enough or, frankly, doing enough damage in Nika's case. Nika is going to scale very well in this game. I know everyone's been thinking that Sobek's not very good for a long time, but don't forget
I've been in that camp.
Sobek was pretty good for a long time in that solo lane, and a big reason for it was because his damage output was way higher than a lot of people really gave him credit for. Sobek is capable of soloing backliners pretty easily when given a slight advantage.
And he's just so disruptive, right? And if I'm the other Guardian, what can I do to stop lurking in the waters from happening to you? Basically nothing, right? Like that damage is gonna happen. It feels unpeelable at times. So I do think that Sobek still has some strengths. I was a bit worried that maybe he might be a bit outclassed by some of these newer gods that are available now, but turns out plucking someone still pretty darn good, right? Or lurking in the waters, this big AoE slow that turns into damage is still pretty good too. So I think Nika can certainly show us what this god is capable of. Now, we talked about how both these teams, their drafts, are relatively happy waiting with coming to the late game, but I do think that Cherryo and Lasbra both on these junglers could potentially set up for some action happening before we kind of get to that mid-ish to late game stage. Do you see any chance that Cherryo and Dardez might want to get a bit active here and start looking for some plays?
Maybe on the Space Station side. I think I'd rather see it for Renegades, though, because
Sure.
Lasbra has a big power spike right now, just got his Jotun's Wrath. He's got plenty of CDR. I'd like to see them start to put a little bit of pressure on the solo lane or in the mid lane, maybe even in duo if you can catch a vote out, though that's harder to do with how much ward coverage is on that left side of the map. But I think that you want to leverage his Hun Batz ult a little bit earlier than something like the Thor. The Thor pick is super strong at this point in the game, don't get me wrong, but that Brawler's Beat Stick is really there to stop a lot of this healing from Venenu and from SoloOrTroll, and it means that you're not going to get nearly as many ultimates off as the Jotun's Wrath pickup from Lasbra. So if I'm last, I think I'm down to start trading ultimates with Cherryo to try and get ahead, because mine will just be up 20% sooner.
And Fear No Evil, such a difficult ultimate to try and fight through in these team fights. Venenu going with the Doom Orb. It looks like he's sitting on the Cursed Orb at the very least. I gotta imagine Doom Orb is on its way. And I kind of like this. I mean, I think that there's an obvious appeal to something like Chronos Pendant for Aphrodite. Like, you want your abilities up a lot. But I think that extra mobility and a ton of power could help. As iRaffer has been caught, it was the Kiss that set all this up. The Fear No Evil was right there behind him, but iRaffer still clinging to life even now, and it's really only Awesome Jake that's in range. That was such a great setup, they just didn't have the damage.
So close, but just short in the damage department. It's because this Steel Mail Sovereignty 2 there for iRaffer ends up paying off, because Lasbra just doesn't do quite enough damage to him despite the full combo. If that's the Emerald Mail, the Gauntlet of Thebes 2, I bet your iRaffer dies there, but just ended up a little bit short in the damage department. But again, those are the plays that you're fine to take as Renegades. You've got plenty of CDR there with that Jotun's Wrath for Lasbra. You force iRaffer's Blink. That's a win. It keeps Venenu much safer in that mid lane. I'm totally fine with that attempt. It's just a bit unlucky it doesn't go their way.
I agree. I mean, you can credit the Steel Mail. I'm pretty sure there is a iRaffer in-game passive that allows him to maybe take a little bit less damage or somehow sneak back out. But yes, the itemization's certainly critical there for him. But I mean, with those jokes aside, doesn't it feel like iRaffer gets away with that stuff a bit more than everyone else? He's willing to push the envelope at times. He knows exactly how much he can kind of get away with, and I think that's been really critical to Space Station, and last year when they were Renegades, it's been critical to their success.
I was going to say a big part of that passive for iRaffer is to make it only is active on the enemy side of the map. It only works if he's somewhere he shouldn't be. If he's on his side, who cares? You know, he's going to die. But if he's jumping in enemy back harpies or something like that, that's when his passive seems to activate the most. And that's been his playstyle his whole career.
Yeah.
And it's no surprise that he's one of the most successful Smite players. In my mind, I think he is the most successful Smite player of all time.
Yeah.
Just has done the most with his career. 2 world championships, went along, won MSI with that Renegades team last year. I know that Adapting is still doing great things now with Radiance. Those two are definitely the two in the conversation, but I just think that iRaffer has really continued to prove over and over and over again. Even during the down year with Obey a couple years ago where he struggled and that team struggled quite a bit, I don't think that you can deny the success that Renegades had last year and take that away from iRaffer in any capacity.
Yeah, I think he might be the player that can most, claim individual contributions to it, right? He's done it on his own, a little bit more separated off. I think Adapting in a really good spot to kind of make that argument now, where he'll be playing less with people that he's kind of played before, whereas I think iRaffer has assembled that team around him several times up until now and kind of earned that additional credibility. But those are all kind of these storylines coming into Season 7, right? There's so many things out there, like you can talk about BaRRaCCuDDa and trying to make something for himself outside of playing with Jeff Inland now, and kind of how maybe his success has declined lately. There's a ton of these storylines coming here into Season 7. That's why I think all these matches have so much extra weight placed on them, aside from just what we're seeing happening in terms of how the standings will update that 1 week, right? There's a lot to be said for how this might define some careers even.
Completely agree. Season 7's a big redemption year for a lot of players. I think that last year having a bunch of veteran, well, at least one big veteran for SK, Zatman win world championship, Scary D has been around for a long time. I think that's a big storyline, kind of checked off the list. If Zap will ever win a world title, now it's kind of the year of redemption for me, and how well can a lot of these players who have been struggling overall in the last few years, or maybe their reputations aren't the best as far as their in-game play style, how are they going to be able to redeem that and try and come back and be mainstays of the SPL? Or Awesome Jake getting his shot at going from the ranked troll to a legitimate SPL support. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, man. There's a lot to follow this year.
I think there is too. Certainly the return of Wolfie for Obey, one worth mentioning there as well, right? There's plenty of them out there. Taking a look at what Spacestation have elected to pick up. We were saying, man, that anti-heal is going to come early and often. Well, it's here, and Divine Ruin for Vote was picked up over there in the long lane where he's playing this Merlin. The Brawlers for Cherryo we already covered, but Contagion now picked up for Nika. Dardez has his Brawlers, which is so easy for him to keep applied with those bees and keeping the honey spread as well. It's going to be really tough for SOT and for Venenu now to get even close to their maximum value as Cherryo takes it to the sky. That's because Renegades have pulled the gold here, and he finds a 2-man dunk, forced the Fields of Love, and the Fear No Evil to come out in response. SoloOrTroll being hunted down, but iRaffer right there to create some space. It's the ultimate from SoloOrTroll trying to keep up with Cherryo, but first blood comes courtesy of Vote. He found a kill. Cherryo ends up falling in trade though as Awesome Jake gets one, and suddenly it's all kicking off.
And Renegades get the Gold Fury. That's the big thing. Despite losing that first blood, Nika could still try and chase down Venenu, or maybe Awesome Jake, who's going to have to de-transform fairly soon. But that Stinger can't jump away. Nika sets up a kill for himself very nicely on that purple buff. But a little bit of a miscommunication there by Renegades. They telegraphed that play pretty heavily. SoloOrTroll teleports in right in front of iRaffer, so they know immediately the Renegades are looking to full commit on this objective. And then Lasbra and Venenu both standing melee range on the Gold Fury. They get double dunked. And Lasbra, despite being linked by Venenu, uses beads anyways. You've just got, if you're playing Afro, you have to trust that your Afro player is going to do their job, especially when you're both getting dunked. But you could use that when you're stunned. You don't have to wait or anything like that. So Venenu just has to use that ultimate a little bit earlier than he wants to. But Lasbra's beads are down. Cherryo does a great job. Dunk, get a whole bunch of relics, a whole bunch of value, couple ultimates, and then immediately get out of there. He does that perfectly. Really good play by Cherryo. Renegades ultimately get the Gold Fury, but losing 2 members, First Blood included, means that it really doesn't put the game in their favor at all. We're still totally even.
Things still very close at this point, but you can kind of see the idea here from Space Station. If Renegades are going to be the ones that are trying to set the pace, that are starting up these plans, the Space Station have a ton of tools to deal with it, primarily Cherryo on this Thor. He finds a great dunk there to split it up, and it's Lasbra responding with a good Fear No Evil that keeps things from going entirely off the rails, I feel like, in favor of Space Station in that last fight. But you were saying that you thought it might be Renegades who'd be the ones who wanted to start these fights a little bit sooner, that they had a potentially favorable trade set up for them in those ult trades. I just don't know that now that it's been nearly 8 minutes since that was true, if that's really still the case anymore.
I don't think it is, because Cherry's got more CDR now. He finished the Jotun's Wrath before that fight, so he has 20% CDR. So I know that Lasbra has 30% with that Hydra's, but it's not as big of a difference as it once was. Dardez has found himself a solid level lead in the mid lane. He's up a good 2 levels over Venenu right now, partially because Ven's been sharing a lot, partially because Dardez is just a really, really good at farming in that mid lane. He was one of the best last year, I thought, at staying ahead. And a lot of that is the way that Space Station wants to play around him. They leave a lot of camps for Dardez to clear, but they're not doing that out of the goodness to their hearts. They're doing it because the man's going to carry the game, give it enough farm. He's level 16 right now, and I don't know that the Lasbra can really try and get on top of him without taking too much damage to really be able to answer.
And we were talking earlier about how this season had all these like redemption lines to it. I wonder if there's something to be said for Lasbra too, because remember how he comes into season 6 where he's kind of off role and generally just kind of underperforming. He finally goes back to jungle, but I don't know if he ever got to the level that we saw him with when he was in the SML playing so well too. I think that Lasbra getting to start in the jungle this year with his team in that main role and kind of set his own story this time is big. And in this game, he has a ton of responsibility on this Batz. Fear No Evil, one of the most important cooldowns, if not the most important one in this game right now out of the ones that are available here to everyone, and making sure he's finding those perfect spots for it is going to be make or break a lot of the times.
Completely agree. Lasbra has a lot to prove this year because he didn't play jungle all year last year. That's relevant, but not the case now.
It's not. He had it from the beginning. Cherryo's already dunked in. SoloOrTroll the target, but a big Fear No Evil. We talked about Lasbra showing up, and he does it here. iRaffer falls first. BaRRaCCuDDa gets the kill. The Cursed Donk is popped. Space Station want to try and keep the aggression going, but Nika's low. Can't get the damage on the Venenu, who's somehow still alive. He does get the kill, but Nika gets traded out. It's 2 for 1 in favor of Renegades.
Man, that could have been even better for Renegades, but Venenu, we had our first Boosh ult alert. Usually it's the Boosh beads alert that's going off, but just too late on that Aphrodite ultimate. Didn't immune the pluck toss back. You could, again, use it when you're stunned, so you don't have to worry about that too much, but ends up getting tossed anyways. That puts him in a bad spot, takes too much damage. I think if he ults a little bit earlier there, that's a 2 for 0, but Lasbra finds the perfect Fear No Evil, and Cherryo's ultimate to start all that off was looking for SoloOrTroll, but it was right as SOT blinked in to his own backline. So a bit of unfortunate timing for Cherryo, and Solo did such a good job of keeping everybody from Space Station focused on him.
Yep. He drew so much focus in that backline and helped out Space Station a lot. Renegades now have grabbed the Pyromancer on the back of that fight since they did come out slightly favored in it, and they should have a little bit more control of the map, but I don't know. I mean, this tier 1 tower goes down. This is still very, very close. I don't know how comfortable Renegades can feel trying to go to a big neutral objective like the FG. Maybe this Oni that's now up could be where we see this next big point of action actually happen, and Renegades seem to agree. They've got 3 members moving over. The Oracle Vision, though, belongs to Space Station, so if this does start up, it wouldn't be a secret.
This is a good idea for the Renegades to try and force this if they can, but they have to be worried about their relic situation. No relics right now for Awesome Jake. No Aegis for Venenu. That's why Space Station's just trying to take the fight.
Charge spray, though, off the mark for Nika that leaves in the bad spot. Space Station, though, secure the Oni Fury. What about the fight afterwards? SoloOrTroll looks like he wants more, but again, Fear No Evil. Solo locks down iRaffer, and BaRRaCCuDDa gets the kill. But that's a 4-man dunk from Cherryo! My man continues to show up. It's SoloOrTroll that ends up dropping. Wall is there for Awesome Jake. Venenu falls off screen, but it's disaster, and the one who brought the warning was Cherryo on the Thor, turning the fight on a dime.
What? I mean, I thought Renegades knew for sure that Cherryo was in the air right there. You kind of have to assume when you're all fairly low, running away together. Why? They're holding hands, skipping through the jungle, singing a song, and Cherryo just breaks up the circle and finds the 4-man dunk. That's just a bit of a rookie mistake right there, Finch. There is no reason for you to have 4 people on top of one another whenever, let alone when there's a Thor in the game, and that's going to break the game wide open for Spacestation Gaming, because don't forget that was an Oni Fury that Spacestation just got. So that's going to put pressure on the map while they pull fire.
No ultimate for BaRRaCCuDDa. Fear no evil, though, for Lasbra, so they do have one big tool if they can make their way in, but they just can't do it. Spacestation get the Fire Giant. There's the Fear no evil, but not going to result in the kill like it has the last few times in aggro. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this was Renegade's problem last year when they were Space Stations, don't get confused. But didn't that team seem to struggle with this exact moment of the game? They'd play the early game just fine. They'd come in slightly ahead or even, and then they'd make one big mistake, and suddenly the game was out of their control.
Yep, it plagued them all last year, and I'm sure BaRRa is having some flashbacks right now to that. By the way, Cherryo makes 2 huge plays back-to-back. Obviously, it's that big dunk by the Gold Fury, but right there, Lasbra was coming in with ultimate, but no purification beads. Cherry stuns him with the wall right in time to make sure that Fear no Evil doesn't come out until after the Fire Giant is completed. It's Renegades just have been committing heavily to iRaffer so far, because iRaffer's made himself real tasty in that front line. I mean, he's been saying, hey guys, I'm all alone. Dump Fear no Evil on me. You'll kill me for sure. And they have. They've killed him twice of that exact same situation. Nearly a third time, that was the first blood. But that's okay when it's 3v3s in mid, when it's lower tier engagements, when it's there's less stakes on the engagement, when it's a 5-on-5 with Fire Giant as an opportunity should a fight go well. Are you really trying to dump that much into just the Kuzenbo support, who is going to deal damage to you during this, by the way, because he can activate his 2, so he's not just dying for free like other supports might in that instance. I mean, look at where iRaffer is in the damage charts. He's really high up already.
Now you're in a scary spot if you're the Renegades, because Space Station coming in with an advantage for the siege with this Muzen Cobb shredding anything in front of him as a scary thought. Cherryo is broken off to mid. He's got Lasbra there with him as well for this 4-1 split, and Renegades got to find some kind of defense.
Left side is going to be the call, and with Titan's Bane completed for Dardez, no one can really stand in front of him with any sort of safety.
There's the pluck from Nika that is going to bring SOT to the back. He goes right up the sky, and Nika pays for his transgression. That's a big pick for Renegades on the defense. Cherryo gets next to nothing with his dunk as well when he comes in, and Renegades for now have done enough to keep SSG at bay.
That's perfect. That's exactly what you're looking for. BaRRa is swinging now, by the way, because he just finished his Titan's Bane, and he's doing exactly his job. Let his front line get plucked, bait your tanks, and then mark the Sobek and insta-kill him, because he's got no way out. Yes, he can ultimate. Yes, he'll be CC immune, but he's not moving particularly quickly in that ultimate. It's easy for you to knock him down, especially with the build that Nika's gone for with that Shield of Regrowth. That's basically a wasted item slot when the enemy ADC has Titan's Bane and Chin Size and Executioner. that extra, what, 200, 300 HP that Regrowth provides? That's 2 autos for BaRRaCCuDDa, and you're not getting that movement speed whenever you're down and lurking in the water anyways. So BaRRa's doing a good job this game. 4-0-0 for him, and right there stopping that siege in its tracks pretty quickly by killing Nika.
It is. It's going to be tough for Space Station 2 because they don't have a ton of what I like to call like this sort of low committal CC, right? I mean, their best is probably like a Thor wall from range. I don't think they want Cherryo being the one to start the fight. I don't know that iRaffer can start the fight. It probably is going to have to keep being Nika going in first and see if he can find some charge praise. But on the back of those, he is a bit too vulnerable now that BaRRaCCuDDa has all that damage at his disposal. Venenu can blow him up a bit too if he's not potentially careful. Space Station are in a good spot. They're still in the lead, but I wonder a bit about how they're going to be starting these fights when they're in the siege.
I really think it's up to Cherryo or iRaffer to take focus away from Nika when he's plucking in, and whether that's iRaffer just blinking on top of BaRRaCCuDDa right away, that can be pretty easily communicated. Even honestly, once you see Nika land the pluck, blink in, stand in front of this Ho Yi, what is he going to do against level 17 Kuzenbo? Right. Not a whole lot. It's going to be difficult for him to get that damage off.
We don't see a lot of late game fights over the Fury, but one's about to kick off now. Primal was started by SSG and dropped, so they step forward. SOT and Nika both take a good deal of poke. It looks like the beads came out from Lasbra in that exchange too, so that favors SSG. And Monkey's gonna be a lot less safe for this next fight, but it hasn't deterred Renegades. They're the ones pulling Primal. They drop it again, and now Space Station step forward.
Venenu can just link onto Lasbra, and even if he blinks engages, he can ult right away and give himself that CC immunity.
That'll make the Undying Love pretty critical cooldown. Cherryo has taken to the sky as SOT is alone in the backline, but Cherryo with some indecision comes to the back, doesn't find much. Fear No Evil is big, hits just about everyone. BaRRaCCuDDa gets a kill, but SOT now low as well. Really all of Renegades low, but Lasbra gets a second kill. Renegades may be low, but they're claiming scalps at this point. And Spacestation want to try and make a punish off the back, but it's going to be tough. Vote blinks in with the flicker. Dardez does take care of BaRRa. It's Renegades that are on the run.
These carries are just too healthy from Space Station. It takes Renegades all they have to kill a couple frontliners, or at least iRaffer and Cherryo, but then they just have to get on the run because Dardez is just putting out so much damage, and so is Vote. These are basically two AoE damage dealers, and Merlin putting out a ton of AoE damage, Dardez with that honey and the swarm. It's just difficult to stand anywhere in these team fights with an AMC and a Merlin. The backline dive has got to get on top of them, and it's just a little bit too difficult to do, it seems like, for Renegades. I got to give credit, though, to Awesome Jake. I thought he played that fight really, really well. Jumps in, kind of pump fakes the front line of Space Station, and then finds the hammer onto Dardez. That forces Dardez's beads. And then Jake has his head on a swivel. Exactly what you want to do as a support. You find your engage, and then turn to the backline. Is my backline good? Realizes they're okay, surges forward a little bit more. Realizes his backline needs some help, backs it up in groups with them. I think Jake played that team fight very well, and I'm impressed with his play so far.
And I'll say through 27 minutes, Renegades are looking pretty competitive here up against Space Station. I think I was worried coming in. I know I was worried that Renegades might be one of those teams that would struggle, especially at the start. And obviously this isn't, anything on its own. They have not won any games or anything like that, but they're looking competitive. And like they can certainly take some of the best teams in the league. Oh, the full distance, that's trouble though. Awesome Jake gets caught up by iRaffer and Votes, gets the kill credit. Now it's a 5v4 and Space Station will not hesitate. They start the FG.
Yeah, that one's on me, Jake. I definitely Caster's cursed you there. Welcome to the Caster's Curse Club. My bad. My bad.
Fire Giant's really low. Space Station get it. Renegades can't come in to contest. iRaffer was on full-on zone duty. Cherryo steps forward and gets the Undying Love out, I believe, on the tail end. That's a nice get from him. If they continue this pressure, Renegades have to be a bit more careful for a while.
Easy. And Cherryo knows exactly what he wants, goes in there, baits the ultimate, gets out. And look, Ven's ultimate's going to be back up before this siege begins in earnest, I'd imagine. But it's still worth Cherryo's time, because if they weren't backing up, then that would have been a good opportunity. Speaking of which,
Lasbra gonna catch Cherryo all alone with the Fear No Evil. He doesn't have beads, so he's in the full duration of it, and Cherryo can't win that fight in that 1v1. I don't know how Lasbra knew, but he had the sense that Cherryo was on the way. He lurked around the corner, and really not much you can do without beads.
Man, I don't know. That makes me a little nervous. Pretty sure Lasbra just missed his Sacred Monkey off of the Fear No Evil. Gets the kill, but we gotta be landing those. That was a little bit harder than it needed to be. Maybe he didn't know his beads were down and was expecting the beads and run back the other way. Well, that's really big brain if that's what he was going for. You know what? That's what he was going for sure. I'm feeling confident in that.
Yeah, I don't know. I like to play less if he doesn't know beads are down, just kind of inherently, but I see what you're saying. As Lasbra does take Cherryo out, but it doesn't look like that's deterring Space Station all that much. Cherryo's going to be up in another 10 seconds. Space Station are going to go ahead and start pushing up these minion waves so that when Cherry gets here, they're in position and ready to strike. They got another 2.5 minutes or so to work with on this Fire Giant. So even with that pick, Lasbra didn't buy them a ton of time, especially because Cherryo didn't use any relics.
No, but Lasbra's ultimate is going to be back up. It already is. And you take Fire Giant off of Cherryo. And at least take, 25, 30 seconds of this Fire Giant by making Space Station wait. You can't end the game there by any means for Renegades. Not turning the whole tide, but those are the small plays you need to find to claw yourself back into a game like this. That was good by Lasbra for sure.
Certainly additive.
Yes.
For the team is Cherryo in mid. Looks like they're going to try this 4-1 split again. Remember what went wrong for them in this push last time? Nika got blown up right away, and there wasn't that second level of initiation to buy him some space. That has to be corrected for Space Station this time, as Cherryo continues to threaten mid, forces Lasbra's attention over towards that middle lane. Nika and iRaffer, the one stepping the furthest forward. That's a good bit of poke they put in onto Lasbra for Cherryo in mid, but he's going to rotate over to left. Looks like they want to 5-stack it.
Could be. I mean, Cherryo can easily just float back towards mid at this point. I wonder if Venenu kind of has to stand between this left side Phoenix and the mid Phoenix just to make sure that he can heal up Lasbra should he get poked like that again.
That's going to have to be the call. Lasbra is probably going to be getting poked more as iRaffer goes in first. It's Blink and right into the watery grave, and he finds one. It's BaRRaCCuDDa with the push and force out the Undying Love and the dive bomb as they retreat. And look at the Phoenix starting to melt like butter on hot toast. Cherryo takes up to the sky as well. I don't know that he's going to find a whole lot here. Yeah, he just comes back with that ultimate, but that's exactly what SSG wanted. They get the left side Phoenix cleanly.
But Finch again, right there. I mean, BaRRaCCuDDa gets Sumo Slam back. He's waiting for Ven to ult. Ven waits too long, Barra beads and jumps away, and then Ven ults. The communication isn't there.
Got to be quicker on these Undying Loves. Lasbra tries to come in for a Fear No Evil, and he does get the kill on the Cherryo. That's big work to take care of the Thor. They're looking for Nika on the left side too. He's got to be done like dinner. BaRRaCCuDDa lands the shot. So 5 members of Renegades up against 3 of SSG with the Fire Giant. How much can they get off the back of this?
Should be tier 2 tower in mid. Maybe you send someone to start pushing up left. You might be able to get mid Phoenix here because you have Jake in this transformed form, but no frenzy for him or anything like that. 30 seconds on Cherryo. I don't know. I think that I would likely just get tier 2 in mid, only Fury, and start pushing up left. No need to get greedy here if you're Renegades.
Lasbra, though, has been making the plays for him when he needs to. Found that solo pick on the Cherryo up there near the mid camp. Just now, comes over the wall and finds a pick. When really SSG got the left Phoenix and could have left cleanly. They end up sticking around a little bit too long, but kind of as we were hypothesizing, Renegades don't find a ton off the back of it. They get that tier 1 in mid, but they don't feel comfortable pushing anything further. That was basically a defensive hold.
Yeah, I mean, tier 2 in mid isn't the end of the world. I think that I would have preferred to see Renegades put a little bit more investment into it just because it gives you a win condition. You don't have to think, okay, well now we've got to worry about, let's say in the future, Renegades defend Fire Giant, they get 4 members of Spacestation dead, and they've got a chance to end the game, but they don't have a path to the Phoenix that's easy. Maybe they walk up right side because they're closer. Now that just means that there's an extra tower worth of defense for the Titan, because that's how it works. The more structures that are up on your side of the map, the stronger your Titan is. I just like to give ourselves a win condition anytime we can by exposing a Phoenix. Maybe Renegades would have been a little bit risking it too much, but I think they could have gotten that and gotten out fairly clean.
To talk a little bit about the items, I like this Rune-Forged Hammer pickup for Dardez on a Muzen Cobb. I feel like there was a time, like at the beginning of Season 6, when this was on like everybody, like all the time it was getting picked up, but I feel like it's still good for a ton of extra damage, a little bit of survivability for AMC.
I like it too. Just good HP, and anytime someone's affected by your honey, you're dealing more damage, or maybe they're slowed by Nika's ultimate, doing more damage. There's tons of CC for SSG.
So it's going to work for him really well. SoloOrTroll and the rest of Renegades had to show up because Fire Giant was started, but iRaffer wants to get aggressive. He finds BaRRaCCuDDa. They made him the target. The beads have already been used, but Cherryo dumps to the back. There's the Undying Love, well timed from Venenu to keep him alive. But what about Austin Jake? He gets the transformation off, buys some time, and Lasbra gets to Cherryo. He dies the second he lands, and Vote gets the double. BaRRaCCuDDa falls as well. Lasbra still had Fear No Evil, and he takes care of Vote, finding a kill in the back of that, so it's 2 for 2.
And now you've got the Aphrodite on one side and no Aphrodite on the other. I wonder which one is favored in a fight like this. Really, really good ultimate from by Venenu that time. But Jake just takes too much damage before he gets that ultimate off. He has gone for a pretty offensive ethereal staff. I know it's got some HP and some good stats for Guardians with the passive, but I think that he could really use an extra tank item in that slot with how much damage SSG has available. Both Vote and Dardez are completely full build at this point, so it's pretty difficult to withstand their damage.
It's a tough task that Austin Jake has kind of been dealt with, right? He's doing so much of the frontlining responsibility for them because SoloOrTroll on this Camazotz is not quite in that same spot that maybe another warrior would be. I feel like he's slightly more trying to put out some damage and then use that ultimate to finish some people off. So Jake has a lot on his shoulders, I feel like, in this game, and he's played well. There are a ton of question marks around him in particular coming into Season 7, and would he be an upgrade over Jeff Hinla? That's kind of the slot he's filling here right next to BaRRa, and how would he look? And I think Awesome Jake has answered those questions so far.
I agree. If player names were off, I wouldn't be like, oh my god, that's Awesome Jake in the SPL. You know what I mean? You wouldn't be able to tell without the player name on top, which is really what you're looking for, right? You wouldn't be like, that guy doesn't belong in the SPL with how he's played so far. Maybe he hasn't been hard carrying the game, but he's been making plays, doing things well enough. I think that this is a perfectly acceptable starting point for Awesome Jake in his SPL career.
Spacestation now positioned around this fire giant. Still no beads for Vote. He's 20 seconds away. 40 seconds from Cherryo having the Aegis. Those are big relics. A little bit of time on BaRRaCCuDDa's beads too, but Spacestation starting up this fire giant nonetheless. They've got it burned down to about half, trying to force Renegades' hand. But look at Lasbra. They recognize that he's back there. Cherryo comes to see him, forces him back out as well, and the dance around the FG continues.
No Aegis for Cherryo is really the only defensive relic that Spacestation don't have available. No shell for Awesome Jake or teleport for SoloOrTroll, but all the carries are in pretty healthy spots. And by the way, Lasbra just backed and bought a 3k power pot. Now Spacestation's gonna know he's not here because he's gonna make sure that left side Phoenix stays up.
So they have a favored fight here to try and take it. They're looking for it. Nika couldn't quite find the charge prey, the pluck there around that geometry on the map. So he comes right back. They start up this FG dance again. And the thing is, this favors Renegades, doesn't it? A slow, sort of drawn-out fight when they've got the sustain as Rapper blinks in, doesn't find much, and Awesome Jake disengages as well.
Look at Lasbra's positioning. He's looking to find Cherryo once again, but now Cherryo has that Magi's Blessing. It's going to be a lot harder for Lasbra to get the jump on him.
SOT has the ultimate forced out, though. I feel like that's a big get from Spacestation. That's going to limit so much of his safety when he goes for the dives. But Lasbra finds another Fear No Evil. But up in the sky is Cherryo. He wants Farah way in the back, dunks down, but the Undying Love is there to save him. And Cherryo cannot make it out. Aegis buys him time, but Venenu clips his wings and shuts him down. This fight now starting to favor RNG, but Rapper pushes SoloOrTroll back. And remember, he has no Bat of the Hell, so he just has to dodge, wait for the sustain to come back up, and he gets pinned against the wall, and Rapper makes another big play.
Man, that was so good for Renegades. Then Solo gets just a little bit too ahead of himself, thinking that they were winning the fight harder than they were. Jake was too low. Everyone had to back up. Defensive relics were down for BaRRaCCuDDa. And SOT just kind of gets pushed back into a bad spot, but it's only because he was so much further forward than everybody else on Renegades.
But this has been so much closer than I was expecting coming in. I mean, this is 38 minutes now. We're into the late game stages here, right? And Spacestation, despite being ahead, they really can't seem to find a clean win to the fight. In fact, if I'm being honest, it's been Renegades who have kind of won the initial parts of the fights, and they can't maintain that cleanness throughout the rest of them. Spacestation have done enough on the back end to kind of force it into a draw. Renegades are right here with even claim to a win, I'd argue.
I agree. I mean, you have 6-item Aphrodite, you're feeling really good about your chances to win. The one thing is that Venenu does not do a lot of damage to this significant front line from SSG. He does not have a whole lot of penetration.
And that was one of the concerns that the fight kicks off. BaRRaCCuDDa in the backline might be in some trouble. Fear No Evil from Lasbra's not great this time, and Dardez gets the shutdown kill. That feels so important. SoloOrTroll's in the backline looking for big damage, but Cherryo still has the Anvil of Dawn. The dunk doesn't find much, but now he's here to help. Dardez gets a double because Awesome Jake gets shut down. BaRRaCCuDDa now low as well, in some trouble, looks for a return, but Dardez keeps it going with a triple kill. SSG now starting to run over Renegades. That might just be the game.
It should be, man, and it's just like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
The problem that plagued BaRRaCCuDDa all of Season 6, the team is playing well, and then 1 or 2 bad decisions really lose you the game really quickly, and Venenu just tries to he stuns Rapper, and then shimmies on past him to try and back off towards his own team. You're not killing that guy fast enough to make that worth your time. Ben gets put in a bad position, then he gets plucked, uses the ultimate too late again, but no matter where he used that ultimate there, he's in a bad spot no matter what. He uses his ultimate too early, then you feel like you gotta try and salvage that fight because you've already put yourself in such a bad spot, and it just forces your hand. Lasbra gets insta-killed by Dardez. Just 1 or 2 bad decisions really have hamstrung the Renegades.
Well, that's the right side of Phoenix. We're worried that might be enough for an end call, but only a few seconds from Jake and Bear being back up, and Spacestation back up for now. Go back, spend a little bit of that gold, and come back in still with plenty of time on the FG. And we said it earlier, I think that so much of this game is depending upon Lasbra finding a good Fear No Evil, and that time, it just wasn't quite good enough. He ended up in a bad spot because of it, and they end up falling. I really think, man, that they need that ultimate in particular to be perfect, and it's a little bit too much riding on that one cooldown, perhaps.
I agree. I think it's just difficult to let him do so much when, as you've highlighted, the front line for Renegades is not easy to execute, where it's really just Jake finding a hammer. The chances of everybody having beads are pretty high at this point.
Well, looks like we're gonna have a fight in the jungle 41 minutes into this game. This just does not happen all that often. They're usually more calculated fights. Cherryo's up, and he's gonna head right to the back land on top of Venenu, force the Undying Love instantaneously, but iRaffer gets popped. Cherryo, though, has managed to get the kill onto BaRRaCCuDDa, so the rest of Renegades have to run. They've lost almost all of their damage. We talked about how much of it comes from BaRRa, and they can't afford to stick around.
I like the idea that you're hoping that one member is going to show up to red buff and we can insta-kill that guy and put a stop to this Fire Giant push really quickly. But maybe they were looking for Vote, who's just getting his Aegis back up. I feel like that's the play you make when you know the enemy carries don't have relics and we can insta-win a team fight. I just don't think that was the case there for Renegades. They were just kind of hoping that SSG would come in a bit lazy, and SSG are dotting their I's and crossing their T's. They play it well. They stay grouped.
Spacestation could afford to force this left side Phoenix, because look at the minions coming from right. They're going to threaten the Titan. That forces SOT to go back. So now it's a 4v3 under the weakened left side Phoenix, and that will fall as well. This has been clean now from SOT this last couple of minutes. That's exactly the way that you want to go about that siege. Really no way for Renegades to defend.
I mean, Dardez is still undying in this game. 4-0 and 11 on 41k player damage.
It's been a monster performance from him, but maybe that gets shut down. Lasbra goes to the backline, overhand smash, flattens Dardez for the first time, but he pays for it. Vote gets the kill on the backside of it, but that does save the mid Phoenix, potentially even the base, as SFG now have to start falling back. But I mean, look at how well Dardez and Vote have played this whole game, man. The backline from Spacestation came to play.
They did, and they're now a combined 11-2 so far. 11-2,
that's pretty good.
21. Yeah, I'll take that. Man, my caster's curse is strong today, by the way. First I hit Jake, then I hit Dardez. Take it. Find the PayPal if you want me to curse your opponents. I'm all over that for you. No problems here. But problems for Renegades, because they've got to keep these side Phoenixes up. This is going to put significant pressure on their base. It's going to be difficult for them to find a way in, but now you've got a win condition. Look at the relic timers for Dardez. This is the time where you're hoping that this is where you group up in the jungle on a weird spot and hope they don't check it, because you can insta-kill Dardez. You're going to make your team fight a lot easier. Vote still has all his relics, and that's a concern, but you got a chance now if you're Renegades to stall another siege if you can just find a way to get on top of Dardez.
That's what's going to be so critical for him this game, because Dardez has been cozy in the back. 42k damage, not bad at all, huh? Well, we'll see if he can keep that one going. Spacestation, at this point, I mean, the Fire Giant has fallen off, so even with those two Phoenixes down, I wonder if they'll come back over to FG one more time, or if you just siege at this point, because they've got such a tremendous advantage. Do you see a whole lot of value in this Fire Giant fight? I mean, I guess Renegades can't come out to defend.
No, I don't think you do if you're Renegades. You're just sitting in base and waiting for the inevitable, you know, waiting for them to come knocking on your door, because you just can't afford to step outside the base with how much pressure your Titan is under. I mean, the right side Phoenix being up helps, but the Titan's not going to start regenning until all three Phoenixes are back up and ready. Left side is pushed up a little bit, and you do want to capitalize on Dardez not having relics, but his beads come up now, having those upgraded for a while at this point, so the only way you're out here is if you think that you can kill Dardez because he doesn't have relics. They might be getting baited, not keeping track of the upgraded timer instead of going for the regular.
Well, Vote is in trouble. Lasbra didn't want Dardez. He wanted the Merlin, and that's such a big pick for them at this point in the game. I don't even know if Spacestation feel that comfortable sticking around. Cherryo's ult's on cooldown now, too. That's a big cooldown for them. Lasbra's just making the individual plays.
Hey, is Hunbat's good, by the way? I mean, that was nuts that he just, I mean, Vote beads right away, but you have to beat Aegis if Batz gets on top of you at this last point. A great point out by Doug. Hydra's Lament, perfect there for Lasbra. 4 auto, 3 auto, you're dead. You're not standing through that damage.
Yeah, Renegades, we talked about how maybe they didn't want to fight, but they're pushed up. There's a skirmish between Lasbra and Cherryo happening in the middle lane, as well as the 3v4 favoring Renegades back near the Fire Giant pit. So SOT takes to the sky. They're putting good damage into Nika. That is Nika. He's hard to lock down, so they target swap over to iRaffer, but iRaffer's still standing somehow too, but the pressure remains. Renegades want to keep going, but now there's minions starting to come into the base as well. That left side base can be threatened. Renegades have to make this push work because they've given up too much to get here. They shut down Dardez, and maybe they can make this push keep happening. Lasbra has Cherryo as well. This is now getting big for Renegades.
And that's huge, but now you're thinking Can we end? No, we've got too many structures. This is where getting that mid-tier 2 earlier makes such a big difference. This has got to be a Fire Giant call at this point for Renegades, which is not a bad thing. Hands, you're about to get your left side Phoenix up. A great 1v1 by Lasbra, playing with fire, but they've got to secure this Fire Giant. Cannot lose this one to Nika.
Well, Nika's here trying to make it difficult for him, aggro. This is not going to be easy. Beating the king rarely is. As Fire Giant starts to get low, Nika dashes in, but there's no chance. Renegades secure the objective. Now they got to get out of there, take their time, regroup. Suddenly, after a 46-minute slugfest, they might actually be favored.
I think they are. I mean, they've got to worry. They're still one team fight away from losing.
Yep.
But so are Spacestation Gaming at this point. These respawn timers are so long that you can't afford to lose a fight, and Renegades are going to be selling their boots for their 6th true item very, very soon if they haven't already. I mean, Lasbra had already bought a 3K pot, so maybe he just goes that direction again, but you imagine Venenu is going to be able to grab a 6th item here, whereas everybody else on Spacestation Gaming has sold their boots already, save for Cherryo. So you know that, I mean, Renegades haven't hit their ceiling quite yet as far as effectiveness in their item builds.
And things are starting to more so than ever truly just hinge on Lasbra at this point in the game, right? And I don't even think, and that's not about skill, it's because of the gods they're playing. I just don't think that there's a better crowd control ability available anywhere than Lasbra's Fear No Evil and how important that has been. And he's shut down Vote instantaneously at the start of that last fight. SSG, from now on, they gotta 100% know where Lasbra is or they can't feel safe.
Man, that is the assassin in a nutshell right there, wasn't it? I mean, at this point in the game, honestly, Fear No Evil is either we're using this to kill tanks or it's my auto-cancel starter against the backliner, because you're never getting a full Fear No Evil against a backliner at this point with them having beads. But it's really just persistent damage in that area and giving you a Hydra's proc is really all it's doing, which is worth its time. It clearly worked against Vote. He died in the blink of an eye.
This tier 2 tower, Spacestation going with a bit of a soft defense. They don't really want to defend it. Just gonna chew away some of this time for Renegades. Our first time, it feels like, getting to see the Chaos side of the map. We spent so much time with Spacestation barreling down onto Renegades. So the tier 2 and left goes down. They should now be able to threaten the tier 2. But I like this with Spacestation. They're giving a ton of opportunities for Renegades to not do this cleanly and maybe find a pick.
May as well. I mean, you're not gonna do anything anyways. You're gonna be sitting underneath your Phoenix just waiting for something to happen. But now is when Renegades have to be told what to do.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. SoloOrTroll was too far by himself, gets plucked back in, and has to use the ultimate defensively. That's what SSG are waiting for. If any part of your disengage isn't clean, Nika's going to be looking to try and punish.
Oni Fury's up, and this is good for Renegades, but they're running out of time quickly on this Fire Giant. I mean, they have a minute and 20 left. They get this Oni Fury, then back. That's pretty much it.
All of Spacestation here. SoloOrTroll blinks, and he does not have Bat Out of Hell. This is so risky for him. He does serve his fate, but now he's been plucked back in. That forces the Undying Love and the Fear No Evil all used to try and make sure he stays alive. Cherryo's ult doesn't find a whole lot either as he comes back in, but Awesome Jake is stuck way on the backside of the fight. Has to use Draconic Corruption, but everyone's waiting. The pluck is there too, and this could be potentially trouble for him. Knocked up by Vote, who comes back in. There's too much damage, and I don't know, man. I think that starts with SOT.
I agree. I don't know if he was told to go in or if he just made that choice, but that choice was wrong.
Agreed.
Whichever way you throw it. I mean, now you've got 65 seconds without Jake. Forget about the Fire Giant push at this point. I mean, it's gone. Fire's gone in 30 seconds. To get an enhanced FG at 46 minutes and to get 2 tier 2 towers and an Oni Fury is not enough. You've got to be able to get more than that in these engagements when you have those enhanced Fire Giants, and Renegades just couldn't seem to make up their mind on if they wanted to push for Phoenix or not. Now, they're down a man for 35 plus seconds.
And like we said, Awesome Jake is kind of all of the front line, right? If I'm Spacestation, I don't know, man, you might just jam it in this spot. 49 minutes, really at 50 at this point, and potentially one mistake could be costing Renegades. They gotta find a way to hold on as Spacestation getting ready to bear down, but it looks like they're gonna 5-man group. Nika goes in with the charge spray, doesn't find much. That's the push as well from BaRRaCCuDDa, but all it does is create space for Dardez to melt the Phoenix. It does drop. Cherryo's taken up, and he finds a way to land on Venenu. That gets the beads out from him, I believe, or some form of CC immunity. He does make his way back out of there, and SSG on the full retreat.
I don't know what happened to Lasbra's ult, but it is down, and he didn't get anything for it. I mean, it was down before he left that mid lane Phoenix. maybe he looked for Cherryo and Cherry hammered away, but it didn't even make Cherry use beads or his Magi's proc. So I don't know what happened, the last result right there, but every good fight that's happened for Renegades has been centered around a good Fear No Evil, and every other fight where the Fear No Evil hasn't been good, Spacestation has gotten what they wanted. And that's a lot of pressure to put on Lasbra in this game, and I think that that's inherent around the composition and the way that Renegades have played it. They're kind of leaving this big responsibility to Lasbra. And I don't know, it just feels a little bit like they're putting all their eggs in one basket a little too much.
That's exactly what it feels like to me with this type of draft, and I think Lasbra is someone who can stand up to that. But the thing is, there's only so much standing up to it you can do. I think now at this point, even if a fight ends because of a bad ult from Lasbra, I don't think I can put it on him. It's been 51 minutes of him playing it really, really well. That's just too much time against a really good team like SSG to ask someone to play perfect.
Agreed. I mean, you're always going to have good ultimates and bad ultimates. You can't expect someone to have all of the good ultimates and not roll any bad ones, so to speak. It's just too much to really put on one player to rely on them that heavily, because the damage just has not been there consistently enough from the rest of Renegades. And that goes back to Venenu playing an Aphrodite pick that isn't going to deal a whole lot of damage, is really there to help sustain. BaRRA has done good damage in these team fights, but that's not burst, it's slow damage. It's on this very, very beefy front line that Spacestation Gaming has. It's difficult to chew through all that for BaRRaCCuDDa quickly, and when the damage output from Spacestation's backline is so much better than yours, I mean, they've got two of the highest DPS characters in the game, in AMC and Merlin, you can't really expect to burn their front line before they burn yours, especially when yours is with an assassin at Camazotz.
It just feels like a question of margin for error, right? The Spacestation just have much more room to work with, whereas Renegades, it's a lot tighter. iRaffer has found Awesome Jake. The wall cuts off Venenu from getting in range. The rest of Spacestation safely grouped up in the back. iRaffer has found him a target. He pushes Awesome Jake back into the wolves. Lasbra drops the Fear No Evil. Doesn't get a ton out of it, and right into the back line goes Cherry. Lasbra has few options. The wall lands on both the back line carries. Cherryo is feasted on the back line, finds himself a double kill, and is looking for Venenu as well. They finally lock Cherryo down, but Dardez weaves in the auto. That's it for Van. They may have claimed Cherryo's scalp, but he's already done all the work. SOT is dead to rights here in the backline. No way he survives. It's Spacestation Gaming find a way to get it done.
It's just like I said would happen. If you get a huge Fear No Evil, that's sick. Everyone still has beads because your composition doesn't burn beads well enough. So you get Dardez and Vote to use Purification beads right there. Lasbra gets a good ultimate, and it just doesn't matter because they beads in turn and insta-kill you. Then not locked onto Lasbra there. He was linked to BaRRaCCuDDa, so he was trying to ult to save Lasbra, but with Lasbra having no jump, beads, who cares? Thor's gonna kill you unless you have mobility in that instance, and knowing the Lasbra jump was down meant that kill was guaranteed. Cherry makes big plays in the early game, has about a 30-minute nap in the middle of that game, and then wakes up with a vengeance and wins his team the game at the very end.
And really, I think that a lot of credit needs to go to iRaffer and Nika there too, because they force out some of those cooldowns. That means that Cherryo's dunk's gonna be a lot more impactful when he gets back there. But what a good game here from Renegades. I know they don't win, and I don't like giving out kind of W's or in-betweens or anything like that, but this Spacestation team is a really strong one. If Renegades went 53 minutes up against them and we're that close, I think you can take some good away from them.
I agree. And I'm looking for Ven to be on something other than the Aphrodite. I just don't think that pick works very well. I know it's not there to do all the damage, but imagine if Ven was playing something that can contribute and help burn these frontliners a little bit more. That's what I'm looking for from Renegades here in Game 2.
It felt like it was a bit too one-note in every category, right? In their initiation and their damage there from their draft. They got to try and maybe diversify a bit in that next one. But Aggro and I could talk about that for another hour, I'm sure, that whole game. Let's get over to the desk instead and have them break it down.
so much of the engagement that the Renegades were really looking for that game. But I tend to agree with what Aggro and Finch were saying, that I don't think Renegades had a good enough beads burning composition to really make those Fear No Evil stick towards the end of that game.
Yeah, unfortunately, the only true beads burners they had is Lasbra with that Fear No Evil. I mean, you could make the argument that a couple of their gods do have stuns, Kiss from Afro, the Ricochet from Huyi, even the Hammer from Fafnir, but those are all single target stun abilities, and they're hard to use in these team fight phases to burn the beads. So maybe had they diversified their engagement through draft, it would have been a lot better, but these guys played so well, I'm having a hard time faulting them.
And I think, you know, we've talked about maybe what was off just a touch there from the Renegades, but talk about what worked from SSG. That backline between Dardez and Vote was near unstoppable. Cherryo, tough engagements in the mid game, not a lot of follow up here and there. But if you talk about that AMC and that Merlin, that was just working for SSG.
And AMC had no lifesteal and so few deaths. He was playing out of his mind in pure positioning. But if you want to talk about Cherryo, you can't ignore around 21 minutes into the game, he finds that 4-man dunk to completely shift the pace. It was completely even up until that point, and then immediately they get Fire Giant off the back of it, a ton of towers, and the gold lead. Unfortunately, the game did swing out a lot longer, so that lead might not have met as much, but SSG did run away with the dub.
Well, game one was so fun. I don't want to delay jumping into game two, because this is obviously going to be a lot closer of a matchup, I think, than a lot of people maybe anticipated. And some curious picks as well from game number one. So I'm intrigued to see if there's any sort of swap here in picks and ban priority for game number two. You know, obviously the Aphrodite, I think, comes to mind. AMC was prioritized there for SSG. Kuzenbo seemed to work for them. So I think I like, if nothing else, the creativity of both of these teams kind of branching out from the typical and what we've seen in the first handful of games.
Yeah, SSG looked like they brought their own meta to this set. I mean, we haven't seen anything like that going in the past, and maybe we won't see it again going forward, but that was so amazing. Merlin banned out by Renegades. I mean, no surprises there. It was played so well. As well as Yamoja, a standard ban, but taking a peek at SSG, the Jing Shen, the Odin, the Persephone, it seems like we're seeing a very much a return to Bog Basic. Renegade's going to steal away that Sobek, though.
Yeah, did you like enough what you saw from the Sobek in the first game to warrant Renegades sneaking that one away here, first pick overall?
I think that a lot of the potency that we saw off of Nika last game is purely based on his comfort on that god. Is Sobek a meta pick in of himself? Maybe not, but when Nika's behind the wheel, it's looking so strong. So I want to see how well Renegades can play around it, because it is a different playstyle having to play around that pluck.
I am excited, though. Horus offers a variety of playstyles, the ultimate, maybe the largest potential for some sneaky plays. But do you like him? I think that's the ultimate question here. I think he brings a lot to the table, but is it worth opting out of presumably some different Guardians?
So Horus, for my money, this is my exact approximation of what makes Horus good, right? The entirety of his kit, sans the ultimate, is bloated. He's got stuns, he's got dash heals, he's got knockups, one of the best forms of CC to follow up off of his dash stun. He's got so many ways to close the gap. It's just the second he goes into his ultimate right now, it takes him too long to get anywhere. It's very slow. The shield isn't too impactful. But pre-5, Horus is one of the best supports you can have. And with this upcoming patch, that ultimate's only going to get better.
And especially with what we saw out of both of the supports in game one, good to give you something in the early game, maybe to leverage, but don't be surprised if these two teams take it to the late game, and we'll have to see how Horus looks a little bit later on, maybe some good, smart uses, interesting uses of the ultimate. But Rama and Kali locked in, so talk about a little late game, specifically from the Kali, but Ram as well. I know we have some big Ram proponents here on our caster team, but what's your take?
Well, you're talking about me. We don't have to be blithe with it. I love Ram. I think he's one of the best hunters. He's one of the most standard hunters there are. The majority of his kit is based purely upon how well you can land your auto attacks, and I think that is a very interesting, unique playstyle, and that ultimate, always fun to see. He's going to be able to use that semi-global to maybe pressure out Gold Fury or steal it away. But this Kali, that is a late-game hyper carry that is now going to have an Aphrodite in the pocket to help her work her way through that early. That's potent.
And I think we've already seen this Hunbat's Kali matchup. It was the SEC game we were casting earlier today, and granted, maybe this is a totally different tier, something to look at, but Hunbat's largely was able to kind of keep pace. Granted, it's a different scenario. Plenty of damage to be found for the Renegades in the jungle moving into the late game. Game 1, Mifflin, that one goes 50+ minutes long. Let's not wait any longer. Jump into game.
Thanks, Dawson and Mifflin. We are indeed moving into game number 2, and Renegades put up a big fight in the first game, but could not quite close it out. And it kind of feels a bit to me like Spacestation in response to that 53-minute barn burner. We're like, all right, if this goes 53 minutes again, we're going to have Kali pocketed by an Afro, and we're just going to close it out.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to stop something like Kali, Afro together. And Cherryo has proven that he's a really, really good Kali player. I love this. I'm excited to see how well Dardez can play the Aphrodite. And I think this composition works much better around the Afro than what Renegades had last game, where anti-heal is still good against Spacestation. You still want it against what Horus is going to do against Cherryo's ultimate.
Yep.
But you've got a clear target that you want to keep alive at all times, and not just, I'd like it if BaRRA stayed alive more often. Then that's kind of what it felt like we saw the Aphrodite for last game.
I am a bit surprised to start as on this Afro. I mean, obviously it's going to be Afro mid, but it just doesn't super feel like one of his gods to me. You know, like I feel like Dardez loves to play these aggressive picks or he can like mechanically outplay you. And I don't know how much Aphrodite fits that. But you want to talk about something that does match the player. Awesome Jake on the support tier. I don't want to let that one fly us by. That fits Awesome Jake to me.
Yeah, this is what I expected when Awesome Jake was announced for this Renegades roster. This style of play. Give him what he's comfortable on, man. And you know what? It's weird. Do I think it's good? Not really. But Jake wins a lot of games with this in ranked. I'm sure there's something that they've practiced a lot. They must feel comfortable with it. Give the man what he's used to playing. I think there's a lot to be said for that. Is it the best thing in the world, support tier? No. Is that one of Jake's best picks? Maybe. And we'll see if he's able to execute it. I've got no problem with them trying it. I just don't know how well it's going to work.
I agreed. I think if you're going to bring Awesome Jake in, it doesn't do you any good to bring him in and then try and force him to be someone else, right? Like, let Awesome Jake come in and kind of play to his strengths, I think is what we might be seeing here. But to kind of talk about this Space Station draft a bit more, when they do get to the late game, how much do you like Horus in that spot? I still think his base kit's really strong, but I don't know, it feels almost like that they're kind of wanting to fight later as a team, and you might have wanted a more team-fighting Guardian on this draft. What's your read on how Horus fits in?
He's a little single target for sure. That definitely comes into play a little bit later on, but I think that Horus is, a lot of times when you see late game comps, you have that early game bridge jungler, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be in your mid 3v3. That's okay. You don't have to do too much damage because Rat's going to do all the damage for you. Horus is kind of like that as a support warrior. He does enough damage in the early game where this is kind of a bridge character for Space Station's composition. And he's still going to contribute late game. He's still going to do a lot of lockdown. He's still going to be able to cause disruption with the use of that ultimate or the knock-up or the heal. It's all going to be relevant. But I'm looking at iRaffer here as the stopgap for if they're really running it down mid and we need someone to do a lot of damage for us, iRaffer could actually be that guy for you on the Horus.
I think he can too, man. I think Mifflin kind of nailed it when he talked about his kid. I mean, I think his ultimate has some good applications. I think we've started to see a couple more uses for it now. Towards the end of last year, it really got honed in, but I think we're seeing even more now. But it's just that his base kit is so strong, so iRaffer will have plenty of room, I think, to operate. I think it is also worth noting that SOT doesn't have teleport on this Sobek. He went Blink with that first relic, which we don't see a whole lot of. He's got mana sustain in the kit, so that's not really a concern for him. It's Awesome Jake gets off to a good start, blinks in, finds Boat, has him low, and in kill threshold. BaRRaCCuDDa getting aggressive too, but iRaffer right there to body block to slow them down, so Boat does survive.
Man, a little bit disrespectful by Vote to not beads that Fearless, but
yeah,
that's the Awesome Jake special, man. Running figure eights around your auto attack, and then blinks and perfectly fearlesses you. I don't know if BaRRa's Persistent Gust was down or if it just was he used it to clear the wave or something, but he couldn't keep that CC chain going. But off to a pretty good start. Gets BaRRa some lane pressure. A bit unfortunate they don't find first blood right there, but this is what you should expect from Awesome Jake, doing stuff like this, blinking in early, the early Talaria, give him as much movement speed and MP5 as you can. I love that pickup for him. I think that it's going to be critical for him finding these big fearlesses.
I I think that's big too. I do think though it's a bit of a letdown that they don't get beads or the kill there, right? So I mean it was nice. It does get them a bit of pressure, kind of forces Vote to back in. Now BaRRa's a bit ahead in that lane, but still, I think with the way that went, especially with Vote not using beads, I think you can expect a kill to have happened.
I mean, you get the blink from iRaffer, so it's
Good,
not all bad. You know, you trade blink for blink and get your ADC lane pressure. I think you're taking that.
iRaffer maybe wants to try and take something as well. He's found some lockdown to Awesome Jake, and with only Dardez there for follow-up, Awesome Jake really not in that much danger, so he makes it out. Talked about good pressure for ADC, but looks like Vote has found a way to reestablish it. He's coming over to purple, and BaRRaCCuDDa's going to clear the wave. I don't know if he can really come over to try and contest this. Vote might be able to claim this little purple buff steal.
Seems like he will, because Jake is rotating over, but he's just trying to run from the pressure that Dardez and iRaffer are putting on. BaRRa backed and got Cursed Gauntlet. Wonder if he's just trying to get enough for Devos right away so we can start stacking that up as soon as possible, but that's the reason that he lost lane pressure, because he goes Cursed Gauntlet. It is so he can get Devos fast enough. But Vote backed and bought full Ninja Tab Eye. That's going to put him way ahead in power level at that point. So BaRRa's basically conceding that early purple by trying to get this stacking item up as soon as possible.
It should give him a bit of an advantage down the line when he's got that Devil Gloves ready to go and Vote still working on it. So trading a bit of this early for potentially a power spike happening a bit later on in the game. Awesome Jake, though, has been the target. You kind of mentioned it a little bit. We were talking about maybe some rotations coming BaRRa's the way, but they have been looking for him. Dardez and iRaffer have kind of been linked up and just roaming around the jungle, and Jake has been their target in a lot of those cases. But this could be a rotation. Lasbra's here on this left-hand side. I'm not sure that Vote's aware. He has beads. It looks like Lasbra gives it up now. It's iRaffer that's in some trouble. The lockdown's there, and that's your first blood.
Smart by Venenu. Use that ultimate just in case that Protector Surge could come out. There's only one place iRaffer could go, and that's towards his teammates. So he actually throws that on where Dardez is standing, just to be sure. Cost them a little bit there, blinking from SoloOrTroll, but still they still got first blood.
Vote definitely wasn't expecting this with how far up he was in lane. He will get to go up, but he's just going to be coming back down into trouble. Very unlikely he makes it out. Does find 2 shots. Just clears some farm that he can on the way back out. And that's Vote stepping up too far, and Renegades finding to punish, but Awesome Jake gets popped. Nika rotates over and catches him out. Looks like Nika might have been proxying and was able to rotate.
Just a little bit of extra power from those purple boots. Maybe not exactly what Awesome Jake was ready for. Nika is level 8 already, so he's doing plenty of damage, even at this early stage.
This is trouble now for BaRRaCCuDDa. He still has the airstrike, though, so he makes it out of there. Cherryo, though, does force him into that airstrike, force him to back as well, and they should get another one of these purple buffs. So not only has BaRRaCCuDDa kind of gone for a longer game strat with his Devil Gloves, but he's been under enough pressure with these invades that he might get even further delayed on hitting that spike.
I mean, he's up 19 stacks right now. He's going to get even more farm before Vote finishes his Devos off, or Vote might just go for the Bloodforge, because you're going to be so far behind in stacks that your power difference is so big that you don't want to try and start stacking now. But look at this, Jake coming from the exact same path Lasbra just did. No blink for him.
And Vote's got to get some wards down or something, right? Because he keeps being in trouble. Lobbering over the wall doesn't quite cut Vote off, but he finds the angle, pushes Vote right back towards BaRRaCCuDDa. But the shell comes in. No, that was iRaffer with the To the Skies ultimate. It was not enough to save Vote, however, and Lasbra gets the kill.
Perfect by Jake. That's knowing your character, man. I mean, he knows if they don't have beads and I hit them with that slow from Lawbringer, I've got that Talaria. I'm way faster. He's also working towards what could be a Relic Dagger or a Winged Blade, something else with a lot of movement speed. He's going to have so much movement speed that he just backsteps and walks around you slowly and then pushes you back towards BaRRaCCuDDa. And now BaRRa gets a purple buff of his own, invaded on the other side, so it's not like he didn't even miss his.
And Vote's got 2 wards in his inventory. Wonder what motivated that as Lasbra drops the Fear No Evil. Not quite going to be able to line up with Venenu's ult, but Dardez still in some trouble. Does not have the Undying Love, so SoloOrTroll gets another pick. And even though it's 4-1, look at the gold. It's not as if Renegades have really pulled that far ahead in experience either. I wonder if they're going to be able to convert these picks into more.
It's not easy when Renegades are being this, or when Spacestation rather is being this clean about putting their buffs on cooldown. It's really only been one buff that they've lost, and that's that purple on the left-hand side. That's how these leads get big early game. It's not the kills. It's the kills into the invades, and you can mitigate that even if you're dying by just not dying around when your buffs are coming up and making sure that they're cleared pretty effectively. And Nika's done a good job of punishing SOT for these 2 early rotations. He's gotten 2 kills for it, but it's lost him a lot of pressure on this right-hand side. His blues have been getting invaded. His tower's really low. It's been good play from Nika so far.
Well, 3 members come over from Renegades this time, so that Nika cannot continue to take the blue, but you can see the difference in pressure over here, right? Nika's tower fully healthy, the tier 1 tower for SoloOrTroll almost down, the blue buffs have been continually invaded, there have been a couple of purple buff invades in Spacestation's favor as well, so even though they've lost these kills, it's exactly like you said, their control over not just the neutral farm, but the farm on the opposite side has been favoring SSG.
But Venenu has done a better job of staying ahead of Dardez so far this game. Lasbra has a slight lead over Cherryo because he's been involved in 3 out of the 4 kills. This has been a better start for Renegades this game, no doubt about it. It's not just kills. Their XP is in a healthier spot than it was last game. BaRRaCCuDDa, despite losing back-to-back purples, is still ahead of Vote because of the 2 kills that Renegades have gotten onto him.
Man, my man Vote is still stepping up in this lane. Where is he getting this courage from? He does go up to the sky with the ultimate here. Puts in 1 shot on the Lasbra. Ali is here, but lands right in the Fear No Evil. A knockup comes through. His iRaffer's here as well. Lasbra very low, has made his way back out. Vote, though, does get lawbreakered on, but Awesome Jake is running away more than he's getting aggressive. Vote, with a good rotation from the squad, makes it out.
Needed all the help he could get.
Every bit of it.
So, I mean, good job by Cherryo to get on top of Lasbra, forced him to drop that Fear No Evil a little bit earlier than he wanted to. Still was good enough to get Vote's beads, and so I wouldn't be surprised to see Jake still spend time over here. He has finished off that Relic Dagger, so he's fast, and he can use this Blink with Abandon. It's going to be up really, really soon every time.
Yeah, but it was that Relic Dagger flump. I wouldn't be surprised to see Awesome Jake over here. I would be surprised to see Vote near the enemy Alpha Harpy in lane again, though. I don't know, man. I know he wants to try and have some pressure over this Jing Wei, but these rotations are going to come from almost every single time. Renegades have shown that at this point, so he's got to make sure he's being mindful.
Jake wants this Fearless on a Vote. You can tell with the way he's positioning, but iRaffer can stop that with a Fracture. It's tough to do, but you can interrupt that Fearless. You can't knock him up during it, so the updraft isn't an option. You have to use the 2 in order to stop it out, but iRaffer basically holding Vote's hand just far enough away that you won't end up getting double Fearless. Take a look at this, by the way. Difference in builds for what Dardez and Venenu get.
Yeah.
Dardez goes Rod of Tahuti in the mid lane, and I love this on Aphrodite because it is a ton of MP5, which she needs. It's a ton of power, which is relevant for her power scaling. The passive is very good at the offensive portion, of course. When they're below 50% health, that back off is going to work like an execute nearly. It does a lot of damage. It's going to do a lot more for your lovebirds. But this also works for your teammates that are below 50% health. You will get 25% more healing when they're below that 50% threshold. So you can actually burst heal people much more effectively with this rod. I love it in this slot.
That's the blink out from Awesome Jake. Is this a lane swap? Because I see Nika over on the left-hand side, and now Vote is over here on right. That might be the idea, maybe to try and give Vote some extra safety, or maybe to have Vote nearby to try and help out with the Pyromancer. Either way, they end up dropping it once Renegades show enough members on this side of the map, but it's definitely looking like they've lane swapped.
It is. It's to try and give Vote some more safety for sure. I mean, he's just been getting camped and wants to be able to stay closer towards a tower than what he has. Ram doesn't have a great ability to escape ganks, and Nika can easily escape ganks with the use of that World Serpent.
Well, he's going to have to come over here and make some big plays happen because the Gold Fury being pulled, Venenu a bit alone in the back line, the rest of Renegades all disengaging. That's because a couple members have poked their heads in from mid. Awesome Jake uses the Lawbringer. He's been liberal with that and the blink so far, and it forces it back. But Cherryo blinks in, finds the beach of Venenu, and now he's on the escape. I think he's happy with that trade.
Did a lot of damage to Ven on the way out too, so it's going to force Ven back to base. A little surprised to not see Spacestation immediately head towards an objective. It looks like it'll be Pyromancer. A little bit lower priority if they want to pull something. I feel like this is a good opportunity to pull, though. I mean, you don't have to worry about Spirit of the Nine Winds. You've got the man advantage right now, 5-on-3.
Well, iRaffer's the one zoning. SOT has moved in. BaRRaCCuDDa here as well. The Pyromancer gets lower and lower. SSG successfully defend the objective. SOT, though, does find the pluck. That brings iRaffer back in, but iRaffer wants to get aggressive. The rest of Spacestation out for the disengage as they found, I think, the first neutral objective here of the game.
No one's gone for Gold Fury quite yet, and Jake gonna try and find a stray invade on the enemy red buff, which he will be successful in stripping away. Little surprised to see Renegades not just send 2 or 3 members over to that left-hand side and just pull gold while they know Space Station is on that Pyromancer, knowing Venenu is coming back from base. He can just walk up and launch that ultimate and secure it for them with some ease, but decided it's not worth their attempt because iRaffer could always start channeling that to the skies and bring everybody on over to that objective.
I want to talk about this lane swap a bit more, though, because I feel like we just don't see this happening enough. Nika got such a lead over there in solo that it's not just that Vote gets the shorter lane, but there's no tier 1 tower for BaRRaCCuDDa over there either. I really feel like the chance of Vote falling under any pressure on the right-hand side of the map is pretty close to 0 at this point. And I like that they're kind of using Nika's lead to get Vote more comfortable.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is something that we've seen in a lot of other MOBAs at a high level, but SMITE really hasn't taken off in that way. But I think it makes a ton of sense in this exact scenario because Nika's so safe on the Yorm and because Vote is so not safe on that Rom. But it also does prevent you from sneaking a Gold Fury quickly because you need that Hunter DPS to be there in order to burn those. It favors Renegades to have this lane swap in a way because BaRRaCCuDDa could always back and fly over should they see the window, but even that isn't too quick. So it doesn't surprise me now that Vote has gotten Aegis to see him immediately head back over to the left-hand side, because if Space Station want to try and burn a Gold Fury when they force Venenu back to base, they're going to need Vote's DPS.
It was almost like a stim pack for him, right? Just to kind of catch him back up a little bit, get him back on some even footing, and move past the time where not just that he was vulnerable, but I think that Lasbra was so much more effective in those early fights than Cherryo, right? Or that awesome Jake represents so much more threat, perhaps, than the rest of Space Station. It's not just that Vote's better off. I feel like their whole comp is slightly better now with that extra 3 or 4 minutes of time they bought, and that Vote can feel a bit safer here on this left-hand side of the map.
And even if it's as simple as, well, we just made Renegades talk about what to do in response to this lane swap instead of talking about how they set up a Gold Fury fight, if it takes 45 seconds for Renegades to talk it out and go, okay, let's just send BaRRa over there. Well, wait, maybe we need BaRRa on left. No, we need him to defend because SoloOrTroll can't really go up against that ranged character, so we've got to do this. That's valuable.
You're right. Dardez puts in good damage, but that's because the Gold Fury is starting. Cherryo, the only one nearby, and he cannot make it in. Renegades grab the Gold Fury quite nicely. It's a question of if any fight can happen on the backside. It looks like Renegades have disengaged as well. This has been a much better game from them. But what's this? SoloOrTroll's come back in. All right, yes, he was the ult. He's out of there, but a bit curious.
Got the beads from Vote, and that's really all he was looking for. Now that sets up Jake for a great opportunity here to blink in and find this Rom.
They're gonna look for the tier 1 tower in mid. Got to be careful if Vote doesn't have those beads available. But they grab the tier 1 tower, and they're on the disengage. That was much better, though, from Renegades, I feel like, aggro on that fight around the Gold Fury just in general. They kept Cherryo out. Awesome Jake had Dardez zoned way out as well. Really not much potential for SSG to steal.
And that was good work by Jake to make sure Dardez is not even close. And anytime you've got Kukulkan, you're priority number 1 on objectives. Your team can be looking for those much more easily. And Venenu did a whole lot of that very, very well last year with Splice, where they would just draft 2 mage ults that nuked objectives. They'd draft Kuku Isis in the same draft just to burn objectives in front of the enemy team. So it doesn't surprise me that Renegades are kind of going with that same sort of style here with Ven going to one of the signature picks.
I'm glad he's back on the Kukulkan. We hadn't seen it for a minute. I'm like, Kukulkan's still strong, so Venenu's the one that pulls out. He's looking good on it for now. But I feel like the question kind of becomes now, has Renegades done enough in this sort of early game, as now we're approaching that mid-game point, where they can feel comfortable going up against an Aphrodite Kali? I mean, it's virtually deadlocked at this point, and it's not as if Renegades don't have any claim to this late game. They've got BaRRaCCuDDa and Jing who's great at that point, but I don't know. I feel like Space Station's draft gives them way more claim.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not even close to enough for Renegades. If you would ask a team that has Afro Kali, yo, are you down to be tied 18 minutes in? Of course they're going to say yes. That's the dream. I mean, you're being greedy if you try and get a lead in 18 minutes with this mid jungle, but to be completely even at this point, you're very, very happy with that for Space Station. But I do not think that Renegades have a bad late game by any means. You already highlighted the Kukulkan and the Jing, but I think Sobek is probably the most impactful solo laner late game because he just does everything. He initiates, he peels, he does damage, he can do it all. There is no character almost I'd rather have out of the solo lane. Maybe something like Amaterasu would excite me coming out of solo, but having a Sobek come out of there, level 20, ready to brawl, is the great sign.
A close second is a fed Jormungandr, though, and that is what Spacestation have there for Nika. Level 19, the highest in the game by a significant margin. He's gone largely unchecked this game. This hasn't been under any pressure. But I think you're right. What Nika's going to be doing in the backline is not quite the same as what SOT brings to the fight. He's going to be trying to make up for that in the interim, I think, with this big advantage that he's got. But it could get stripped away from him. He's got to ult, I'm thinking, right away with 3 members nearby. He goes into that ultimate, and he's going to have to fully disengage.
Aegis saved his life because Venenu's ultimate was right on point for him, but I don't know, maybe Lasbra should just be dropping his Fear No Evil in that moment. You can't start ulting whenever you're Aegising, so you could Fear No Evil right there that keeps the CC chain going, and they'd probably kill him in that amount of time, but maybe wanting to save it, not burn 2 of their 2 biggest team fight ultimates in order just to kill the Jorm, but Nika's so far ahead that I would have been tempted for sure.
So my caster's curse not quite as strong as yours, I guess. I haven't been here. That's what it is. Pyromancer goes down for Renegades. They're going to bring iRaffer in as well. Fear No Evil further pushes them out of position, and there's no way out. They body blocked him perfectly. That's a great pick for Renegades. They're going to start up this FG right away. At least I thought they were. They haven't pulled it just yet, but they are posturing as if they want to force a fight. And Lasbra's low. That might be why they're hesitating, because this Kali starting to chainsaw her way through, and Lasbra ends up dropping.
And now Jake's in a bad spot. He still has that Lawbringer, but might need to use it because Cherryo is just about ready to go. He's got that haste katana. Still needs to finish off the chin size or executioner coming next.
Also, Jake has to be careful. This is exactly the range Kali loves to be in. I know you hit her with that Fearless, but you don't want to be too close. He manages to make his way out of there, and that's too bad, man. That really looked like a good spot for Renegades, didn't it? It starts with that pick onto iRaffer. The Fear No Evil is used well by Lasbra to cut him off, but they end up a bit fractured on the back of that fight somehow, and it gets away from him.
Just Lasbra gets split off, and it looked like SOT was ready to pull fire. I think Renegades were probably saying, okay, let's just wait until Venenu's ultimate is back up, and then we can start to pull. But Lasbra had already split off a little bit too far from the rest of the team and found a wandering Aphrodite Kali in the jungle, which is never a good look for him.
Yeah, how did Susano Afro end up being the meme? This is truly fearful for me, this Kali Aphrodite. Good luck trying to stop that. Good kiss from Dardez, stop SoloOrTroll in his tracks. I doubt the pluck would have landed, but he doesn't get the positioning out of it either. And Spacestation able to regroup nicely. They want more aggression. SOT locks down. There's going to be a fight as Awesome Jake gets 2 of them. The ultimate comes through, maybe a little bit late from Venenu, as iRaffer can't get the To The Skies off. He ends up falling. Venenu claims the life before the ultimate can come through, and that favors RNG.
What do you know? Jake's tier support carrying another game. Vote gonna try and steal Oni Fury with that ultimate. Perfect reset by Renegades. They're gonna secure that Oni Fury. Nicely done. But that's really off the back of Jake finding another big Fearless. It forces Dardez to swap over to Vote. How about a great play from Dardez to save Vote's light there, though? He finds a way to sneak that kiss in and then use that ultimate onto him. It leaves iRaffer to the wolves, but that's your support. That's his job, to die for moments like that. But Vote surviving is huge.
Renegades are heavily favored to get this Fire Giant, I'd say, if they want to stick on it, but it looks like this is more of a bait. Maybe they don't realize just how free it might have been. Now they're starting it up, but Nika's nearby. Cherryo has a decent loop around path too, and I don't think it's warded. Fire Giant's low. Fear No Evil confirms if they could be walking into the waiting hands of this Kali if they're not careful. Now they know BaRRaCCuDDa has to use his beats to get away. Lasbra gets a good overhand smash as well, but Spacestation going to get what poke they can on the way out.
Perfect by Renegades. That time, I loved that call. It's risky to do it without Venenu's ultimate, but Lasbra zones away anyone who might be looking to blink in or really get their hands dirty on that Fire Giant. Then BaRRa has to use beads, but there's no thought on turning to burn. If they lose BaRRa in that spot, they lose BaRRa in that spot. Let's not lose everybody. This is clean for Renegades. Still only a 3K lead. There's a lot of gold left on the map, though. I mean, there's only 1 tower gone for Spacestation, so they make that 2 as the minions take care of 1 on the left-hand side. If you're Renegades, you're looking for every tier 2 here at this point. That's 4,500 gold. Add in the extra tier 1, that's 5,000 gold across your team that everyone's gonna get. That could make a big difference in this game. That'll set you up for a better Fire Giant fight whenever that respawns.
I gotta say though, this is red alert, right? This is speech in the Rose Garden time for Renegades based on how last year would go. right around now is when they would somehow end up making one of those mistakes that slips the game away. So they got to keep that same clean that we just saw happen on the FG happening here. And iRaffer's looking to make a play. So this guy's is up. And Renegades know it. They're giving up on this. They're falling back. And iRaffer still goes in. He's kind of a waiting duck. Awesome Jake pins him up against the wall. The ultimate doesn't find much. Lasbra drops the Fear No Evil at all too. SoloOrTroll does come in to find a charge for Prey and drops the Curse Knock as Awesome Jake takes care of Cherryo. This fight is turned back around and Renegades still feeling good.
I mean, Cherryo was in prime position to do damage there. Everyone on Ega, so I don't think he's killing everybody, but he's going to do a lot of damage, and then he just didn't... Oh, he didn't press forward. You got to press forward when you're playing Kali. I don't know if he got CC'd, but SoloOrTroll wasn't there, so unless Jake picked him up with a Fearless, I don't know how that really happened. Renegades get the most important kill on the map, which is the late game Kali.
I think that was exactly the fight that they needed to win too. Now that was sort of that scary moment. They overcome that, and now they're favored moving on this left side. Phoenix, they don't have to worry about Cherryo anymore. iRaffer goes in to try and start the fight. SoloOrTroll is low underneath the Phoenix, but in goes Awesome Jake. He can't afford to stick around too long here either. He gets stunned out. The Phoenix switches to him, and Dardez gets the kill. So at the doorstep, Spacestation Gaming turn Renegades away.
And now this is going to be a great chase opportunity for SSG. They don't have iRaffer's ult, but still like their odds to keep everybody from Renegades back. And I mean, I know hindsight's 2020, but this lead is now only 5K. They got one tier 2 so far off this Fire Giant. Well, I guess they got a tier 1, but minions did it in that same time frame. If I'm Renegades, I can't help but think, I wonder if we should have just gotten all the towers. There's no way Spacestation stepping up to defend a tier 2 without Cherryo there. Why not just go mid, push up those 2, then transition to the right, get that one. You'd be up a far bigger sum and feeling way better to only be up 5K. 5K is a good amount, but to only be up 5K when the enemy team still has Aphrodite, Kali, Rom late game, I wouldn't be feeling super comfortable if I were Renegades.
This is exactly what it feels like Spacestation drafted for, right? Was they knew that Renegades would be able to play them close like they did in Game 1, and they wanted this sort of escape clause, this win condition sitting in their back pocket. They still got it. The tier 1 tower in mid's gonna drop. Renegades get a bit more off the FG, but it's falling off in 10 seconds. It'll be another minute till the Fire Giant's up. And even though they're down, I think Spacestation can come out and take one more fight around this FG aggro.
Definitely. I mean, this is still a very winnable fight. They just have to make sure that their relics are up in time. I mean, Dardez lost his beads to Awesome Jake on that Phoenix dive where Jake died. As long as you've got your relics up, I think Spacestation's perfectly happy to take another Fire Giant fight.
They're in position for this Fury here first as well. Most of SSG are, but Renegades are on the way too, and I don't think you want to lose too much around the Fury when there's a Fire Giant spawning in 30 seconds, so I'm curious at how much resources will get expelled. SoloOrTroll steps up the furthest to try and play the zone. Primal Fury down to half. Nika nearby, along with the rest of SSG. Still no beach for Dardez, but he has Undying Love, so he's still feeling comfortable in this fight for now as they re-pull the Fury.
Ben's job is to just secure this one with that ultimate. He's going to do just that.
That's more than enough. They got this Primal Fury, but are they going to stick around for this fight on the backside? Nika could keep the CC chain going. Can't find either one. And Renegades have repositioned nicely. They should be relatively out at this point. Cherryo continues to step forward, though. There's the To the Skies from iRaffer. If they don't find anything off it, really, Renegades can back and be here to defend this FG, especially because SSG aren't rushing over to him.
Awesome Jake had to use his beads and his ult there, but that's not too big of a deal. Feel like Renegades did that very well. Let's get the objective and then hold steady, just wait it out. Now all you're waiting for is Venenu's ultimate to come back up, and you can do something very similar on the Fire Giant. And now you have a Primal Fury buff, so you're taking less damage and dealing more damage to the objective.
Should be in a pretty favorable spot here now, as you said. Once they have that ultimate from Venenu, they can be the ones that force the issue and try and force Spacestation in. We're slowly getting to that point where Kali's feeling good. The Kensais are finished. The Executioner now finished for her as well. Already had that hastened katana. So at this point, should be able to chew through whatever target she can stick to. That's if she can find one. Cherryo really has not had much of an opening up until now to try and make any big plays.
But he somehow still has 10,000 more player damage than Lasbra, which is surprising. Because I agree. I feel like he hasn't really found an opportunity at all. And Lasbra's been at least a little bit more involved, right? I mean, he's got 5 out of 7 kill participations so far in this game. but it's really just been a lot of blinking in and fear no eviling the low health person, I suppose, based on these damage numbers, because they certainly aren't very high right now. But in his defense, they aren't really high across the board. I mean, you take Nika out of the equation, he's the Yorm, he gets poked for free in lane, all yada yada. No one's doing a whole lot of player damage in this game. It's been a lot more calculated so far in these games.
Yeah, it's been measured. It would be how I would try and put into this game here so far. But Spacestation, every second they can buy, I'm sure they're happy to use this. This Aphrodite, getting a bit bulkier too, has the Ethereal Staff as that 5th item, that a little bit of extra HP. You're saying it maybe wasn't quite enough for a tank, but I think for a mage, this feels pretty good. She's kind of foregoing the normal breastplate that we see, but we still like this.
Yeah, she's a little bit low on cooldown, only 30%, not maxed, but still that's enough. I like the build, but it does mean that she's doing next to no damage to SoloOrTroll or Jake. And as long as everyone's playing around that, that's fine. I mean, Jake doesn't have a whole lot of defense against magical either. He's got an Amsile, and that's it, really. I mean, he's got a Cloak of Concentration and his Masamune prots, but this is not your typical support build coming out of Jake. Would like to see a 20% pen option for Dardez in that 6th item slot, but maybe, no, he should probably just get Soul Reaver so that you can basically just become the, I link this guy, you get in there, I press 2, and now I get Soul Reaver procs on a couple people. I think that's actually the way Dardez should go. It's going to leave him pen light, no doubt, but he's still going to be effective in his healing and his player damage on a backliners.
Well, Renegades are positioned like they wanted to threaten the tier 2 in right. They've given that positioning up slightly. Ven and BaRRa are still a bit isolated over there in that right side by themselves. Renegades don't look as though they're all that comfortable trying to start up this fire giant. Instead, it looks like they want to force some fight. So Awesome Jake goes in, does proc that passive there to Nika, so he's taking all this extra damage. Meanwhile, SoloOrTroll keeps hitting away. They brought Nika down to half, but they haven't done a lot with the space they've created, but they have forced Nika to back.
A little surprised that iRaffer doesn't just channel to the skies there and cut off the escape path for Ven and BaRRa. I mean, maybe that's a little bit too risky with all of Renegades sitting in the jungle, but those two were pretty far alone whenever they started walking back towards that blue buff.
Agreed. This is trouble now for Cherryo. Still has the leap, repositions. It doesn't have to use any relics there either, so he's still okay. He'll back up and heal. BaRRaCCuDDa and Venenu gonna take this time to grab Pyro. I'm a bit surprised, though, by how much Renegades are kind of sitting on their hands here. But is that the right read? Are they sitting on their hands, or have SSG played the defense really?
It's just a tough composition to engage on if you're SSG, because Nika's so far forward, we can't Sobek pluck him. We could try and Sobek pluck iRaffer, but he's got 2 dashes to get out, and no one else is really presenting themselves, and they've got great damage coming from Vote on this ROM at this point, that it's difficult to really have a frontliner go in and find an easy initiation. Also, Dardez has been linked to iRaffer a decent amount, so even if you pluck him, Undying Love could be there, and now SOT's in a bad spot. You're basically giving Aphro a big back-off opportunity if you pluck him into the whole team, and he's still healthy enough that he can kind of chill. Renegades just don't have a good way to get on this back.
Awesome Jake does have to use the purification bead. Spacestation don't give up anything of value in response. That's a nice little trade there for them. Oni Fury being lifted by Renegades. Maybe that can open up some space, right? If they can get those minions to force a couple people to rotate over. But Spacestation are here. They recognize that potential threat. They're not going to let this Fury go down easy.
But again, Venenu can just ult this and secure it. It's up to Spacestation if they want to really fight.
Oni Fury is now low in that threshold. Renegades secure it quite nicely. No one gets hit by the ult on the back end, and Renegades are fully on out of there. SOT does have to use the ult, but as you said, this is still fine for Renegades. Now they can maybe make a play around this Oni Fury here instead.
But they can't all reset at this point and give Spacestation a free crack at fire. They've got to make sure that some people are sticking around and able to get in there. Nika backing in mid lane basically tells Renegades that that SSG is not pulling Fire Giant, so that's good. Honestly, I love the way Renegades is playing this. They're just saying, hey, if you wanted to sit there and do nothing, we're cool with that, but we're never letting you engage on us, and we're just going to do objective after objective, and eventually you're going to have to respect it.
iRaffer is the one that's forward getting grabbed. They pluck iRaffer back in, but he has the Aphrodite on him, so he's going to get healed right back up. was never in that much danger. This is where Renegades, I feel like, have to make a call. The call's to engage. Lasbra finds a big Fear No Evil and gets the beads out from both. That's what they were looking for. iRaffer too far forward, doesn't have the Aphrodite helping him, and BaRRaCCuDDa gets the kill. They finally caught Spacestation, not quite responding correctly, but Venenu's in trouble. Cherryo is inside that ultimate and gets the kill onto Ven. That cuts away a lot of their potential in the FG, but Cherryo's definitely gonna die in trade here, right?
He's got a lot of movement speed. Lasbra somersaults there in time. That was so perfect, Finch, for Renegades. They do it perfectly. They get everybody separated. Dardez has to use his ultimate and go underneath the tier 2 tower. iRaffer can't follow because of that Fear No Evil. No way for him to get back to his team. They divide and conquer perfectly there. And then Venenu just sticks around too long, throws out a whirlwind that is going to poke damage and not really kill, and then has poor relic usage on the back end, gets blink stunned, doesn't beats it. Aegis is too late. He took 80% of his health at the time he was stunned. That should be Fire Giant for Renegades, but Venenu got a little bit too greedy.
Yeah, I think Nika wasn't even there, right? He had to go deal with that Oni minion wave over and left. So really, it was perfect timing from Renegades too. They did everything exactly the way they drew it up, right? You stall them around the Fury, you take your lead to go, or stall them around the Fire Giant, take your lead to the Fury, come back and force a fight with the numbers advantage, and somehow Venenu gets picked and all that. It's a good answer back that they grabbed Cherryo, though. That delays Spacestation from looking for anything on their own and maybe making a push. So we kind of go right back to where we were, that same equilibrium where Renegades are ahead and the ones who threaten the Fire Giant, and Spacestation have to be nearby to try and play defense.
Now Venenu doesn't have Aegis, but Cherry doesn't have beads or blink for a little bit. No Aegis there for Dardez, no beads for Vote. Renegades can just go, okay, let's do the exact same thing. Let's just be patient afterwards. You know, let's not try and get too greedy after the fact. The initial engagement, flawless.
SoloOrTroll still being the one that's frontlining for Renegades at this point. Spacestation relegated to the back lines to have to try and watch as Renegades continue their patience around this objective. The only thing I'm a bit surprised about, though, Aggro, is that they're not pulling the Fire Giant a bit more and really forcing Spacestation's hands. Are they not quite favored enough if they take too much poke from the FG? What are they worried about with actually pulling the objective?
Yeah, I think they're just worried about taking a little bit too much damage because they want both Jake and SoloOrTroll really far forward in order to get these great CCs that set up their backliners. And so you're really leaving it to BaRRaCCuDDa. I was going to say, I wonder if Bear is going to sell his boots for another lifesteal item. Like a double lifesteal lets him tank fire way more effectively in that moment. But he decides to go for Poison Star instead. And this is great against Kali because it slows her down. It slows that attack speed. It makes her deal a little bit less damage. It's a great item to try and burst down the Kali before she can burst you down. But it doesn't play to where the state of the game is, I think, where maybe double lifesteal gives Renegades a better shot at actually pulling this FG.
Fire Giant's been started up a little bit now by BaRRaCCuDDa, not doing a ton of damage to it. He has to give that up and fall back a bit. And I know Renegades are playing this patiently for now, but it's feeling like Spacestation are doing enough, right? They're doing what they need to do to kind of keep this stalling out. They're to the point now where Cherryo is at that full strength. He rounded his build up with the Odysseus bow, which just gives him a ton more attack speed. I mean, he's going to be swinging here at this point. It's going to be hard for Renegades to keep him off.
Oh, I love Odysseus bow on Kali. I mean, you're overcapped on attack speed at this point for sure, but who cares? You're getting huge damage procs from that, and it's impossible to body block away your target because your Odysseus bow procs will kill him for you, and then you still get that reset.
It'll bounce through quite nicely. Renegades have pulled this Fire Giant up again, but it's starting to kind of go the way you said. They're taking a bit too much poke from it, and Spacestation are not biting really at all. They're staying close without overcommitting. So now they're trying to make the call. These pings coming out. There's a minion wave pushed up in left. Maybe they're worried that someone on SSG will have to back didn't contend with it, and they can start up this Fire Giant. And they're right. Nika's the one that backed to deal with that minion wave. So they finally got the numbers advantage. This is forcing the hand of Spacestation to move in. Fear No Evil stops Cherryo, but he does get the ultimate off in time, but he can't stick to the target. Gets the kill on the Lasbra, but cannot find the reset, so he dies in trade. But Nika's back. Venenu dies, and the ultimate finds no value. Look how low SOT is. Nika gets the double, and iRaffer still clings to life. They've managed to find a 3-for-1 and bust open Renegades.
Beautiful engagement by Spacestation. They just know that they can't let Renegades get that objective low, or else they'll just kill it. So let's just kill the guy who's going to do it for them. And that's Venenu. They dogpile him effectively, and they kill him with ease. Nika's able to come in and finish him off after his Aegis was used. Vote forces that with good use of that ultimate. And Lasbra just can't find that priority target again with that ultimate. both Dardez and Vote still has every defensive relic up. It's hard for these assassins. It's hard for this assassin to dive an Aphrodite comp. She just makes herself and someone else impossible to kill.
Accidentally played by Spacestation, and now they should be able to take this Fire Giant. I mean, no way BaRRA can take this by himself, right, as he marches in. How many times has BaRRaCCuDDa's number been called in big numbers? It'd be impossible to count at this time, and all these moments where they've needed him. He's nearby, maybe can find a persistent gust or something from range to try to steal, but he's standing nearby. He's gonna at least give it a go, it would seem. I don't think Spacestation quite recognized. He steps in, does look for some damage. Awesome Jake comes in as well, and it's low, but Spacestation managed to confirm, and Awesome Jake will fall to the Wolves. BaRRA gets a cleanup kill on the iRaffer. That's nice, but he's definitely gonna die. Lasbra comes in as well with the Fear No Evil, doesn't quite get to Nika in time, and now he'll get gobbled up as well. They give too much on the back of that.
Yeah, just an odd decision in general. I mean, BaRRa walks in there with no airstrike and no relics. I don't think you really get that much by stealing that Fire Giant. Jake decides to go in and try and defend. I just don't like that call at all from Renegades. Yes, it's going to be hard to defend against an enhanced Fire Giant comp that Spacestation has.
Do they just lose?
I think they do. I think they just lose off that because they could test a Fire Giant that they really didn't need to.
Wow, that's a bit of a backbreaker for Renegades. We'll see if they can find the defense though. Aggro, SoloOrTroll and Venenu. Kukulkan, great on defense. He can clear these minions out, but it's just too much. That's starting to barrel down now. SoloOrTroll does head right to the back and try and keep Vote out. They know he's a lot of the damage, but Cherryo has cleaned up Venenu quite nicely, tightly. Now down to half, and it was just too tall a task. Spacestation Gaming 2-0 over Renegades, despite really Renegades being in great spots in both of those games.
Agreed. I mean, Renegades were in a great
tough.
spot to win that game. They just couldn't find those initiations properly. A couple bad positioning errors by the carries. And then, I mean, that call to defend fire is just a real head scratcher to me because BaRRa walks in there with no relics at all, no airstrike. Let's say he gets Fire Giant. Sweet. They still end in that spot. Fire Giant isn't what enables Renegade or Spacestation to end there. It's the fact that they killed 3 people who all suicided to try and steal the Fire Giant when they know that the relics are still up for the carries. They know that Afro ult is coming up. I don't know, man. I feel like that was just a bit of frustration coming through for Renegades, knowing that they had a stranglehold on this game for so long without being able to close it out.
I think that's what we really ended up seeing there, was that they were at this point where they didn't know the last step, I don't think, to close that game out. And Spacestation were playing a bit too cleanly. They weren't going to make any big mistakes, I don't think, and just open that door up for them. So it is Spacestation that come away 2-0 over Renegades. Maybe not a surprise the end result, but a bit of a surprise with how we got there. Let's get it back over to the desk, though. We'll let those guys break it down.
And there you have it for week number 1 of the SPL Season 7. And I want to immediately echo, I think, what Finch just said to close out set number 2 here on Sunday. Maybe not a surprise that SSG grabbed the 2-0 here, Mifflin, but the fact that it was so contended, I think is actually props to the Renegades.
I mean, I didn't expect it to be nearly as close as it was. These Renegades team, I was expecting them to place themselves solidly in the bottom 4 seed of SPL, but these guys have shown that they're able to compete with who I have at my personal first seed going into the SPL. So these guys are competing by and large far above what I had expected. Jake played out of his mind on that tier. I mean, what a out of left field pick, and he shows that he's comfortable with it, bringing it into the meta. I mean, everyone from Renegades can be proud of their performance today. Unfortunately, I do have to agree with Aggro. It seemed like it was frustration that led to that end game throw.
And I love that you bring up Jake, because I think that was a lot of the conversations we were trying to have pre-game here, and how would he fit into this team? How would he fit into the SPL in general? And aggression was kind of the big thing that you brought up about Jake, and maybe a variety of supports that would work. And I loved what I saw in the tier. I mean, they grabbed themselves like a 2K gold lead 20 minutes in, a big team fight, a Fury steal. And Jake made a lot of that early aggression happen. So it's not for a lack of trying and a lack of success, but maybe some cleanliness down the stretch that just slipped through the Renegades' fingers.
This was also a different level of aggression that we saw from Jake. Usually it's unbridled and he gets those into mode games like you see in ranked on streams and stuff like that. But Jake was playing disciplined and he played aggressive when he needed to. It seems like whoever the shot caller is for Renegades did a fantastic job of really refining Jake's playstyle.
And I think the reason so much of the conversation is around the Renegades is because they surprised us. SSG, though, absolutely deserving of the 2-0 here to round out our week in the SPL. 8 teams, 4 games. Let's see what we had. 2-0s across the board, Mifflin. Right off the bat, though, anything jump out there at you? I mean, E United over Rival, maybe not as surprising as some people would think. Definitely community-wise, Rival was pretty heavily favored there, though. What do you look at here in a week of 2-0s?
I mean, I'm looking at exactly what everyone else is seeing, that these 2-0s, even when they did happen, a lot of them were hard fought. It could have been 2-1s, it could have been 2-0s the other way. The SPL is more competitive now than it has ever been, and that's exciting.
I agree, and obviously complete parity here, top 4, bottom 4, just after 1 week. United, Radiant, Sanguine, SSG, maybe 1 or 2 of those teams is what we expect to see up top after week number 1, Mifflin. But I'm not sure I had those top 4, at least after 1 week. But I'm so excited to continue to move through here in future weeks and really see how these teams develop and how those standings shake up, because I kind of agree with what you say. This is so competitive. I couldn't tell you week after week who's going to be winning, who's going to be losing, how the standings are going to change. So next week, I think, is a big week to look at as far as shifting around. And here's what we've got for you. 3 days of SPL action. Friday, United up against Radiance. So one of those teams will remain undefeated. One will end up dropping. And then Renegades versus Rival. Mifflin, those Friday matchups are going to be wild.
That is going to be wild. My eyes forevermore throughout the year of SPL are going to be on Renegades and Rival. These are 2 teams that I expect great things from, and seeing them match up against each other is going to be really exciting. But my eyes are also glued hard to Saturday. Sanguine, I think, is going to be popping off.
Yeah, wait, Sanguine SSG, the headliner for Saturday as well, and then Knights Obey. I mean, talk about star-studded matchups, I think, all throughout the weekend, and then E United up against Renegades to round out on Sunday, and then Obey Radiance, of course, to round out our week. Lots of good competition, I think, to look forward to next week and in the next few weeks. This was a fun one, though, Mifflin. Overall, just generic, maybe high-level thoughts on the type of play, the caliber of play, good things, bad things maybe you saw this week in the SPL. Anything stand out to you?
It did seem to me that NA may have adapted to the EU playstyle of playing for the late game. We saw some incredibly disciplined play, especially in that last set where the first 20 minutes of the game are just completely even farm fest until around the first gold free fight, maybe about 21, 22 minutes in. That's when things start to pick up. And that is a distinctly European playstyle that now has been adapted by Renegades.
Yeah, all these teams starting to mishmash playstyles, the meta as well. That's it for week number 1 of the SPL Season 7. Remember, next Friday, this upcoming Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, we will kick back up for week number 2 of the SPL. On behalf of myself, Mifflin, everyone back in production, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on Friday.